tonight on today's Wednesday karaoke with Brad.
I know. Like I was trying to get Ruby in here, or when I had her in here, she doesn't understand like the headsets and like the mic, so she'd be in here hollering on it. I'm like, and hitting the limiter on it. I'm like, Ruby can't do that. And we tried to do her on Adlin's little trivia podcast, but she doesn't comprehend it. Like she got mad, started crying, and then she, was just whining like a tired 4-year-old she is. And I was like, Ruby, you can't do that. Nobody wants to hear the crying in the background. And we had to stop it and just start over. But yeah, Ruby wants to do it, but she don't want to do it. But she does. But Adlin does like doing the trivia a lot. We do it. We'll probably do another one next week. So like every week, 2 weeks, which I guess, starting off this podcast, talking about my daughters, but it's a lot of fun doing it with kids. But anyways, we're here. It's my first episode ever of my podcast, and I've got Mr. Larry Morrell here with me, longtime friend. We worked a lot EMS together. He was my partner for, how long were we partners? 1.5 years, 2 years?
Right at 2 years, bro.
Yeah.
Before you went to go to work on the bird.
Yeah. Now I work on the helicopter, which I guess I'll introduce myself too as the first episode here. But my name's Brad Gant, and this is a podcast I just wanted to start to talk to a lot of the EMS people I know, people that have been in it for a while, that I find interesting. Hopefully you'll find interesting. That I kind of feel have a story to tell. There's some other people that I hopefully can get on here if they're not too shy, but they've got long histories in EMS, and they're kind of just a generation of EMS I feel like we're about to lose, just to father time. But anyways, that's kind of my goal with the podcast. It's probably not necessarily going to always be EMS based. If there's other people I want to talk to and they want to come on, I gladly have them. But, it's not, I just want to have people on to have them on. These are people that I think need to be heard, stories told, have an interesting story to tell, or just generally I find interesting people. So that's pretty much the quick, rough breakdown of what I hope to accomplish. But anyways, this is Mr. Larry Morrell. Larry is an EMT-A now, aren't you?
Yeah. Advanced EMT.
Yeah. They can't get you to paramedic school?
Well, they could, but, I've been in it 13 years now.
Yeah.
And 17 years total with all emergency services, volunteer fire, and all that. And I really have given paramedic school a whole bunch of thought, but right now with the situation, me being a single parent and having kids at home, I just can't see myself debating time towards school whenever my 10-year-old needs me at home and all that. So I may look at it in a few years as soon as he gets where he's a little bit more self-sufficient.
Now, look, when I went to paramedic school, which I thought about this other day, how long I've been doing this, because I started fire department in 2005. And so this is my 20 years of public safety. I've been doing this.
Yeah, you got a couple years on me. You started in 2005. I started in 2007.
Which, when I started the fire department, I was the second youngest person there. I was 22. And there was one guy that was younger than me. So I started, fresh out of college,
It was still wet behind the ears.
Yeah. Like, look, and genuinely, people ask, like, why you got into public safety? I got into it because it was only 10 days a month, the fire department. Look, I was in college, and I was just, partying too much. I wasn't, it's probably not surprising anybody knows me, but I was not a good student. I've never, my ADD's always been level 9. But, I did a couple things. I sold cars for I don't know what it was, 3 or 4 months at Fordtown in Albany when it was Fordtown. And then my buddy was working fire department in Albany. Mm-hmm. And he said, hey, Albany Tech down there, they do like a firefighter 1 basically class at the tech school. I think it was 2 nights a week. He's like, man, y'all join fire department, Albany Fire. And I said, he told me about it. He's like, yeah, you only work 10 days a month, whatever. I was like, man, that sounds right up my alley. I don't have to be behind a desk. I only work 10 days a month as a single man. I was like, shoot, yeah. And so I did that. And then it was probably 2 months into class. I was living in Americas, and Americas trains their own, and they had openings come up. And I was like, man, shoot, I can go get trained and paid to train, or paid to train.
Where would you go wrong with that?
Yeah, so that's how I started in public safety. I didn't I can't claim like I had like a big feeling of a calling. It was more so just my own laziness of I'm going to work 10 days a month.
Yeah, when I went through it, it was I joined Colquitt County Volunteer Fire Association. Not certified. Backstory though, when I was 16 years old, I was part of the search and rescue team. And at that time, I was the youngest ever member, and that was back in 1999.
Huh.
And I had moved in December of 99 over to Clinch County, over in Homerville, and lived over there for quite a few years. Worked with the sheriff's department over there as jailer and dispatcher. Met my first ex-wife. Not proud to say ex-wife, but life happens, you know. And after me and her met and we started a family, Homerville's a great town if you like to sit around and watch plants grow and paint dry and stuff like that. So I approached her. I was like, hey, let's move over to Moultrie. There's more opportunity over there. That's my hometown, you know. And I tried to get on the fire department, but me and a few people didn't really get along too well. So I never got the chance over there. Moved back over to Moultrie and went to Northside Fire Department there in Moultrie and introduced myself and told them I was interested in joining. And they're like, well, yeah, you got to make meetings. You got to be voted on, all that. I was like, you know, where do I sign up? So I joined the fire department. 2 months later, they're like, oh, we're reaching a partnership with Moultrie Tech. And we're going to do a Firefighter 1 class for people that are not certified. You'll have to go through financial aid, whatever, to get all that done. But we'll get you squared away where you get signed up. And we done like 3 nights of class. Me and one of my real close friends and his fiance at the time, we was all in the class. And I was worried about hazmat. You know, that's something to really learn about is the containers and all that. But when it was all said and done, I was the second highest scorer with hazmat and passed through MPQ1 with no issues. And afterwards, they was like, well, have you given medical any thought? I was like, no, I don't want people's actual lives in my hands like on a medical call. Well, just so a few months after I got my Firefighter 1, we had a car accident day after New Year's. Head-on collision happened right down the road from my house. I was the first one on scene. And the guy that was in the passenger seat, he was agonally breathing. To me, I thought he was just trying to catch his breath. Little did I know he was agonally breathing. Anyhow, he didn't make it. It was a pretty horrific crash, but I got thinking to myself afterwards, I was like, man, if I was medically trained, I could have probably helped that guy. Fast forward, you know, later on down the road, I figured out a trauma surgeon could have been standing right there and it wouldn't have done that guy any good. The dash had rolled and ruptured his aorta. But even when they were working to extricate him, I watched the medics climb in the car, intubate this guy while he was still in the passenger seat. You know, he was sitting upright. They intubated him, doing chest compressions, you know. And I went through first responder class, and matter of fact, my best friend's fiance at the time, she was going through class with me too. And learned a whole bunch, and I already had general knowledge of AD, CPR, all that good stuff, but so far as the actual medical knowledge, you know, just for emergency medical responder, as it's called now, I learned a whole lot. And I went out, done my clinicals. I actually exceeded my hours on clinicals, but I was like a sponge, soaking up any knowledge. And long story short, got certified as a first responder. I was making every call I could if I wasn't at work. And Anthony White, who I think you know him also. He used to
What's his nickname? I can't remember his nickname.
Tank.
Yeah.
Tank.
I was trying to remember. I was nobody calls him that.
Yeah. He's working for a different agency out of Tallahassee now. And I still talk to him on occasion. But one day on the med call, he was like, hey, man, you ever give an EMT class thought? You're really good at this. You got patient compassion. I was like, I got what? You know, he was like, you really care about people. I'm like, well, I've always been the kind of person, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go all in with it. So, and my biggest worry, other than hazmat, you know, with fire, drug calc, you know, is me, I've never been a whiz at math.
Yeah.
However, I excel at science. And science and math go hand in hand. So he was like, well, dude, if you go through it, if you have any problems, all of us are here. We'll help you. I never once had to ask for help. Went through, got my basic, and our former EMA director over in Colquitt County, Russell Moody, he was like, hey, man, since you got your EMT, have you thought about getting a job anywhere yet? I was like, I don't know anybody that's hiring basics. He was like, well, I'll tell you what, I got a friend that's the EMS director over in Mitchell County. I'll put in a word for you. Just fill out an application. His word alone and about two other references I had listed down. All of them had told the former EMS director, Ian Rice, told her, hey, give this guy a chance. He really deserves it. You won't regret it. I was Ann's, from what I understand, I was Ann's very first EMT basic she ever interviewed and hired after they had just went privatized. And during the interview, I told her, I was like, look, if you hire me and give me a chance, I promise you, I'll go through my advanced class, get certified and all that, because back then, back in 2012, they was looking at the bridge from I to A.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, we'll give you a shot. Man, over 13 years ago, ain't looked back, you know. And, you know, I've seen the fair share, and I've seen EMS change a lot in these years. Some for the good, some for the better, some for the worse, you know. But it's...
Yeah, I think everybody's seen that here in Georgia. I'm sure it's probably all over.
And they say that there's a nationwide shortage, and I see it. We all do, but the way how it's changed so much in just from not even a full 20 years, difference is night and day on certain things, you know, makes you sit back and wonder, where did all the time go? You know, I'm 43 now, and, you know, where do I see myself in 20 years? Hopefully still on the boo-boo bus.
Look, I tell myself that all the time. I'm like, especially now, you know, I'm 43 also. But, you know, I've been doing it 20 years, and, you know, I got your kids, well, most of your kids are older than mine. But I'm like, man, I ain't getting no younger. These all-nighters.
Oh, man.
I'll be like, man, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? I need to find a real job.
It's like last night I was at the fire department and went to go get up out of the chair. And I was like, oh, man. They're like, what is it, Larry? And we just got back off of a fire call. And I'm like, y'all, I can tell I'm getting old. How's that? I was like, man, my knees hurt, you know. And, of course, you know, we all don't take care of ourselves like we really should at times, and wish that. You know, I used to be well over 300 pounds.
Me too.
And wish that you have worse circumstances, you know, back then. Me going through a divorce caused me to lose a pretty good bit of weight, and I've got back on that kick on, you know, trying to watch what I eat, exercise a little bit more. Running my mouth don't count, unfortunately, but if I was running my mouth more, I'd really be slimmed down. You know, I'd be looking like a toothpick.
Look, I find that the hardest thing, because I know, and I guess there's a lot of people, I've never like fully investigated, but I know if I'm really tired, I'm just hungry, and I'm just going to eat. And I don't know if it's my body's way of telling me, hey, you need probably to get some sleep. But for some reason, when I'm tired, man, I just want to eat. Like, it's not even like I'm really hungry. It's just I want good, warm, you know, like Waffle House food or whatever. I don't want snacks. I just want...
You want like some good comfort food, something
that's
going to stick to your ribs.
Yeah. And like, I guess that's kind of how metric I know if I'm tired. Like, if I'm really tired, if I start getting like just hungry like that, I think it's my body like, oh, you're going to eat a meal so you'll get sleepy.
Y'all, Brad's getting hungry. Y'all better make him a bed or something, you know, for him to sleep on.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, put a little table so he's got something, you know, have him a bite and then lay down, you know. Yeah.
Man, I'm thinking back, like, because I didn't do EMTB. When I was working fire department, they had, they would come up and they did an EMT-A class, like a satellite class from Darton. You know, not Darton now, but Darton College. They came to a satellite class at the fire department. And I got my EMT-A. I don't know what year I got it. Maybe like 06. It was like a year after I started fire department. And I didn't do anything with it. It was just fire department had it. They wanted, they weren't a combined service, but they had some medics and stuff on the truck we treat. But I got it. I think my EMT-A number was like 37,028 or something. But I don't think they had bees back then. I think it was they had the EMRs, their emergency medical responders, EMT-A. They didn't have A's because the next step was paramedic.
They still had basics back then. I think
they were called something different. They were like EMRs or something, and they gave basics like. I'm probably butchering this system, but I remember they brought the they changed the designation because they got rid of
they changed it around
because it was like emergency medical responder or something. It was basically like volunteer first responder medical
the
status.
EMR.
Yeah, was it called EMR? I feel like it was called EMR.
They're still called EMRs nowadays. Okay. Don't quote me on it because I don't work for registry.
But I know they didn't have B because they gave us EMTIs and they got rid of I. And they made
A's are basically obsolete. You still got a few out there that are still up keeping their hours, but they haven't bridged over to the A yet. And just a few weeks ago, I was looking through the Georgia Scope of Practice on the updates, and I noticed where A's can now give epi and cardiac arrest.
Man, I have no idea of their scope anymore. Which I stay on.
It's changed a pretty good bit. It's like the company I'm working for now. They just wrote across the whole board on new pain management and different things.
Yeah.
Like up in certain other states, advanced EMTs can push Versed for a preeclampsia case, having seizures. And I'm like, hold up, is Georgia going to, and we said technically Georgia will allow it if the med director signs off on it.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm just waiting on them to, tap us on the shoulder. All right, y'all got this coming up. And the company I'm working for, they're growing pretty substantially. And I'm glad to see them growing and them being very aggressive with the scope of practice that they're allowing the A's to do. And, it's just, I wonder how much more they're going to go with the A's considering the shortage of medics out there, because pretty soon A's are going to be the highest level of care because you ain't got enough medics.
Yeah, we see that, which I know you know this, but we see that a lot on the helicopter, especially at night, which both of us operate in South Georgia, and it's all rural down here. Like there's no specialties. You have some decent hospitals, but anything, there's no comprehensive stroke centers. There's no pediatric centers of any type. You have a couple like, cardiac centers, like Phoebe, they can do PCI, and I guess Tiffany can do PCI too, but Phoebe's, not bad cardiac wise really, but anything, any kind of specialty has got to go far away. And even just on the ground, if you're taking somebody to the hospital, unless you're going to like the boo-boo station, like, one of the small little bitty town rural
town hospitals.
6-bed ERs, you got to at least have a 30-40 minute drive. So everything's rural and got to go. And like, we'll go to these small, and even, we go further east and, there's nothing, they got one ambulance and like, they have like a patient, say they're ALS, but they don't necessarily need a helicopter. Like, look, we can't get anybody here to get them. Like, but they have to go. And so
they got to go to that definitive care, and normally they want them to go the fastest way. And we say it's like whenever with the county, with Mitchell County where I work at, we're in between Phoebe and Archville. But, if we're out there over near Hopeful or Veda, out there really in the sticks, just a week and a half ago, we got a call about a possible stroke. As soon as the call come out, we went here and requested see if we get a bird flying. And by the time we were rolling up on scene, they were already scouting for LZ. Yeah. And so by the time we made patient contact, the bird was landing in the middle of the road with the fire department. So we got her to definitive care a whole lot quicker versus getting on scene. Oh, this, does need a stroke center. But the only good thing about it's kind of a twofold, but with your longer response or transport times, most of the time, if you give somebody dexamethasone or, certain steroid, you actually get to watch it work versus, your shorter metropolitan towns, you treat, but you don't really see that outcome. 30, 45 minute transport time, you actually start to see this medication work on certain medications, and you can watch a person go from, shock to reversing the shock, and you can watch them progress or degress.
Yeah.
So
Look, I was a new paramedic in, our old, like CHF protocols, had Lasix in it. So you give like 40 if they weren't taking any. If they were taking Lasix, if they took 40, gave them 80 or whatever. And, man, I don't even know if we had CPAP. We probably had CPAP on the truck back then. When I started, we didn't have CPAPs on the truck. But it was Lasix. I don't think they even had nitro in the protocol then. Maybe they did. I don't know. Either way, point of the story is they weren't on Lasix, but they were pretty full. I mean, they weren't frothy, but you could definitely hear it.
You can hear that.
Yeah.
Pop.
So I went protocol. It's like, got a line on them, got 40 Lasix, and I was working with another medic. And back in the days when we were fully staffed, you had 2 medic trucks. And I gave 40 Lasix. He goes, "Did you go ahead and give that Lasix?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh." I said, "What?" He goes, "Man, we got like a 30-minute ride." I was like, "Yeah."
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
Pun
yeah.
intended.
He's like, "Man, you're going to make them pee everywhere." He's like, "I'm not saying you did yourself wrong," which, it's, he was like, "You might should have waited a little bit." He said, because he said they're going to have to, they're going to pull off all that water in a little bit.
Make sure you got a urinal ready.
And they did. Which, we didn't have a urinal on the ambulance. And of course, the whole thing like, so you got to go, just go. And man, poor guy peed all over his stretcher. He was in better shape by the time we got to the hospital, but that was lesson learned. I mean, I'm not withholding a drug, but for their comfort and yours, because he wasn't in a state where he had to have like Lasix right then, which Lasix isn't going to work that fast either. Which I don't even know if it's in most ground protocols anymore, but
yeah, some services still do it. Matter of fact, we had an ALS call a few weeks ago where we actually had to give Lasix in the southern part of the county. And by the time we got just on the outskirts of Thomasville, the patient, "Hey, I gotta pee. We roll into Archball. Y'all better stop and let me go pee real quick before we get up to charge nurse desk." And we're like, "Sir, we can't let you off the stretcher, So we're like, "Hey, y'all, get us a urinal over here." So we still got it, and of course nitro going with it, to help open them up. So, you get to see that medicine actually work with your real, EMS with transport times like that. And of course, another thing, Lucas device, like if you got a post-cardiac arrest or a current one, if you ain't got a Lucas, your back is going to be killing you by the time you get done with it.
I worked, County North here for a while, and it was a well-funded county. And they had a Lucas on every ambulance, whichever, 5, 6 ambulance. And I'm trying to remember how they were. But it was like 5, 6 years there. I never did a compression because, you got called to unresponsive cardiac arrest, anything. You got your bag, got the monitor, you grabbed the Lucas. And so slap, 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 Lucas on them, thump, 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 thump. You were set. You had a whole process, get your IV, strap the arms up to the side of it. It was not conditioned. It was a well-organized event. And then
organized chaos.
Yeah. And then when I went back to Grady, they didn't have Lucases. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot about doing compressions." Because really with a Lucas, and like when I worked over in Terrell, they had a Lucas. And man, you can run a one-man code. Once you had them tubed and you had a Lucas on them, you're like, "Well, I don't really need anybody. I'm just going to push drugs and bag them."
If your truck had a bin on it, you can hook up the bin.
Which, it was always good to have somebody back there. But, once you had them on Lucas and everything, you do a one-man code. And it was
as long as that battery's fully charged.
Yeah. Which, luckily, Lucas would still work, plug it in, keep it charged. And, and right when we first got him, I remember we went in the ER, had Lucas on him, like, "Hey, can you just leave this here for a little bit?" Because, it was very effective, I heard all the new thing of, it's one they're not recommending Lucas. But I haven't even read the articles because I'm like, I don't know. I've seen it be handy. I don't even know what they're saying. I probably should look into it, but I was kind of one of those things like I don't use it, and I don't know. I kind of the AHA and stuff. Everything comes in and out.
Because they may say we don't recommend it now.
Yeah.
10, 15 years later down the road, they're going to swap it back around.
Yeah.
How much have we as EMS seen stuff flop back and forth? No, we're not going to do this. Yes, we're going to do this, and then back to no. So it's changed a whole lot, and it's the company I'm working for now. they are all of our frontline trucks all have Lucases on.
Oh, really?
And that is a blessing, especially with us being a rural county, like it is. So
Low. I'm turning the lights around here.
Ooh, brightness! I thought I seen a mushroom cloud for a second. How bright it got!
Yeah, let me turn that back down. I was trying to change the temp on the heater, and evidently I did that. There we go. Let me do that.
People watching the video portion of it, they're
Yeah.
gonna be like,
Somebody shine a
you
spotlight to the
doing
window.
this?
Good Lord, I'm dropping stuff.
Yeah, this episode is being filmed during daytime, and it's getting brighter than the sun.
But yeah, I used to love the Lucas.
And what's that? I've seen the other ones that they've got, and what's that? I've seen it where the Lucas has not worked, and you had to resort to manual compressions. And then of course,
Which too, you got to fit in the Lucas.
I was about to say, a patient's weight and chest size can, be a major influence on if they're even going to fit it. And I'm not the skinniest thing out there. And God forbid, if something happens to me, I want somebody using that Lucas because I know how fast a back is going to start hurting. You're not going to be able to, even if you got two people there swapping out, humans get tired. That Lucas, though, as long as it's got a charge and everything's working good, you're getting the exact same thing every time. So,
especially for the longer stuff we do, which now, I know Grady's protocols where, you had to Rosc on scene to transport. And so that changed a lot because a lot of times, we're just little rural counties. They're like, oh, nope, you work them to the ER. Work them. And sometimes you got a long
the company I'm working for, the way how it's set right now, and I could be corrected later on down the road, but we working on scene. If we get a change, we transport.
Yeah.
Like if they're a PEA and they go VFib, ACS, we ain't gonna go there about that. But if we see a change like from PEA to VFib or VFib PEA, that's automatic transport. And just a couple weeks ago, we actually had one. And we watched her go from VFib, PEA, back to VFib, and we got Rosc. And we transported her directly to Archibald from Pelham. And, we took out the middle, facility to where the patient, we had Rosc, and we gave MD-Odron. And we went here and we high-flow diesel and oxygen. We got her down to Archibald, couple of stents, and not even a week later, she was released to home. Walking around, now with stents in her, but now this person's got another chance on life. And granted, we could have took her to the close facility, but that would have been a delay in care, especially when she needed, a PCI.
Yeah.
Intervention. So,
which I meant to ask you this earlier when you were talking about where you grew up and everything, and I got sidetracked from my own whatever thoughts about stuff. But you grew up in Homerville. When did you come to Mitchell County?
I actually born and raised in Moultrie.
Yeah.
Let me sit back a little bit and
relax. Look, it's comfy. That's what I was doing. I had my feet kicked up on the thing below.
But born and raised in Moultrie. I lived in Moultrie until I was 17.
Yeah.
And I moved to Homerville in December of 99 and moved back right in 2007.
Oh, okay.
So about 7-8 years. And I've lived in Moultrie, other than that time I was in Homerville, labor in Clinch County. And with Mitchell County being right there beside Colquitt County, that's why, opened up the door for me to get hired on over there. And I still live in Moultrie. I just commute every third day over to Mitchell County. So...
yeah, I didn't. I never knew. I remember you talked about Homerville. Now, didn't your parents live in Homerville?
My mom and dad, they're both originally from Clinch County. My mom, she lived in Pearson for a little bit right before her and my dad had met, but they're both originally from Homerville. Dad, he's buried in the northern part of Clinch County. And my mom, she's living back over in Homerville now, and try to get her to move back to Moultrie again, but she was like, "No, son." Oh,
you're fine.
And she was like, "Nah, son, I want to be here in Homerville, so I just commute over to see her whenever I get a chance."
Yeah. Look, Homerville, I've been a few times flying in there to their hospital. And it's funny the things you remember. Like I've been there a few times. And it was always like the same PA that was working, and she seemed very good. But it's funny just because the stuff you remember. All I remember, just because I fly on a helicopter, is they have really tall lights on the helipad, and they always worried me. I always like if we have a new pilot, I'm like, hey, we go to Homerville. I was like, those lights around the helipad. I said I feel like they're like 3 foot tall, but which they're not. But you're like, don't drop your tail low. Watch those lights.
You think that's bad? The old hospital used to be on Carswell Street in Homerville.
Yeah.
Their back parking lot doubled as their helipad, and you had to land in between trees. And the parking lot, I remember my mom, she actually got life flighted from Homerville one time back in, matter of fact, it was in 2001.
Yeah.
Right after the 9/11 attacks. And they were flying her to not Shands, but Savannah to Memorial Health from Homerville. They thought she had a swelling brain. And back at that time, Baptist Life Flight was still based in Worth County. That's before they had their incident. But the helicopter had to be fully fueled, to land. So after they done scrambled to clear out the back ER parking lot for the bird to come in, we're going to take her out to the airport and land the bird there. And they got EMS lined up to transport her from the ER to the airport. And I remember the reason why it sticks out to me so much, not just because my mom was being flown out, it was the first helicopter I knew that was coming to Homerville after the 9/11 attacks. And this was like not even a full month afterwards. So people were real iffy-ish about aircraft flying in and stuff like that. And it was like 11:30 at night when Baptist flew in and picked her up from the airport. And I remember the line of cars around the side of Highway 441 at the Homerville Airport. People just sitting there watching the helicopter come in, then EMS come up, them loading her over. And they took off with her, and I want to say it was about like 3.5 hours later, I finally got up to Savannah. I'd never been to Savannah before. And I ended up getting lost. Me and my dad got lost on the way up there. Right when we was coming into Savannah, I think it was Apricorn Avenue. And we saw a police unit and was like, hey, we're trying to find the hospital. They actually ended up giving us a escort there.
Look, that hospital's hard to find from the road. You don't think it's back there.
Yeah, that place, and I have not been back to Memorial Hospital ever since 2003.
No.
That was the last time I was up there when my late Uncle James was up there. And that place has changed a whole lot, and they're the only level 1 trauma in South Georgia, And I think the other closest level 1 is Shands in Jacksonville.
Yeah, you got Trauma 1 down there.
And wishing that's where my dad was at before he had passed. And they done a great job, trying to do what they could for him. And, I'm just surprised that South Georgia itself does not have a centralized trauma center.
Yeah.
Just yet. Who's to say one might not be in the works?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Phoebe's trying to get their level 1, but they're still, level 2. I mean, we still don't have a comprehensive stroke center here either. Which somebody told me Archbold is trying to work on that again.
I've heard that too.
Archbold, not Archbold.
But Dothan used to be like the main stroke center, and their doctor had left, went to Tallahassee. So we started sending everything to Tallahassee. And the way how it was, anytime it was possible CVA, call a bird. Get them down there within 30 minutes, especially if they're in the window for the TPA and all that. So it's just, it makes you wonder what's going to happen, within a few months' time. Who's going to lose this accreditation? Who's going to gain it,
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, SGMC in Valdosta, they're a stroke center also, but they're still limited on what they can do.
Yeah, they're pretty much just, don't. I don't want to speak too detailed on it, but I do know they're pretty much like TPA, TNK. I just flew one out of SGMC last night that which is a pretty good story. It's nice to see like the TNK, TPA actually work. Because this guy was he was out in town or something, and he all of a sudden had onset of symptoms, and I think he was with family or something. But they called him. They called EMS. EMS brought him to the hospital, and he had TNK. They gave him TNK, I think, about 45 minutes after onset of symptoms.
It wasn't they sat around, we'll just
no, he was out in town. I can't remember, shopping, something like that. But he was out and about in town with family, and all of a sudden, he got weak. They said he got dizzy, and then his speech got real bad. And so they called EMS, right side, left or right sided. I don't know which side deficits he had. But when he got to the hospital, they said all he could like shake his head yes or no, had a ton of aphasia. And they gave him TNK, and by the time we got to him to transfer him, because they couldn't handle what he had going on, he was talking to us. He was, I would say, like, his aphasia, he was answering questions. I mean, he was slightly slowed answering them, but he was answering them correctly. He had full movement back of both lower extremities, and I think by the time we got to the receiving, he had full use of both arms and stuff. So it's pretty amazing when it does work.
Yeah.
And it works, the whole system works like it's supposed to. But he had a good outcome.
But one of the key things about it, though, the family recognized, called.
Well, and luckily he was with somebody. A lot of times, people have it, nobody's
by
around.
Themselves, or either it happens in their sleep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When's the long set of symptoms? I don't know. They were fine when they went to bed. Well, I guess that's the.
They may be out the window, but in that case, we don't know what time. So treat it as if it was a fresh onset, and then you can, the doctors make that determination, and we say, I don't know about the bird, if y'all can actually start TPA.
We'll keep it going. If we got it, if we get there and they still got it going, and it's got like another 20 minutes or something, we'll just add our drip set basically to theirs and run all the.
But y'all don't carry TPA to start it, in the field or something like that.
Which usually, man, I can't remember how long they got to put it in over. 30 minutes? I think it probably depends on the dose, but I've never, I haven't worked in the ER, so I don't know that in because we don't start it. But, we just carry like Cardine, labetalol, and stuff to manage blood pressures for the most part because, you want to. I think our protocols, it depends on if it's confirmed or unknown, but, we don't want to drop it more than like 15, 20% of what they came at. They're systolic.
And last thing you want to do is give somebody TPA that's, possibly got to bleed,
Well, the worry is, too, like if, they had, if they've got a massive blockage of whatever, then you give the TPA and it dissolves the clot, then all the vasculature behind it that's now been starved of blood, it might be necrotic, then you've solved the clot problem, and now you got to bleed. Now you went from a ischemic to a hemorrhagic stroke, and now you've made a worser problem. Well, or an equally as bad problem, I guess, at minimum. But
excuse me for looking at my phone.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I haven't seen it.
I'm a popular person.
Yeah, look, I put mine on silent because usually everybody likes to call me in the morning, which I told the wife, I was going to do this, so.
Yeah, I'm also in the process of getting ready to move from where we've been at for the past 2 years to a bigger place, and we're helping a friend of ours move from one place to another, and then we're moving, so it's logistics all in its best.
So I never asked this before, do you have any brothers or siblings, or is it just you?
I got one sister. She lives over in Turner County.
Yeah.
And I got a brother who lives over in Waycross.
Okay.
And my brother, he is significantly older than me. And my sister, she's got like 2 years ahead of me. So, and we say I don't talk to my brother nearly like I should, but he's got his own life and everything else going on. And my sister,
look, I'm terrible at it.
Own crazy person.
The older I get, the more I hate talking on the phone. I hate it. I talk to my wife on the phone, for the longest than anybody, but most times, man, I hate talking on the phone.
I just rather shoot a text and just say what I need to say.
Well, then that goes thing like I don't have like a long text exchange either. I don't know if it's just from the job and have to talk to people, which I generally like talking to people. It's just it's something about like texting and calling the phone. I would just rather talk to you in person. Which
And-
like this podcast, I don't want to say I'll never do like a phone conversation podcast, but it's just not that interesting to me. Like I don't
because you're just hearing the voice. It's not like you're interacting.
yeah, it's not as intimate. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure my sister, which I got a sister, she now lives here, she's 2 years older than me. But I need to talk to my sister more. But a lot of times and it's really anybody. So anybody that's called me and ain't called you back right away, take no offense. It's not just you. A lot of times I just hate talking on the phones. Oh, man, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me
like
getting older.
The other day you tried to call when I was on shift and everything. I answered, and I told you I'd call you back in a little bit. And I tried to call you back, and you're like, dude, sorry. I got sidetracked. I'm like, you ain't got to explain it to me.
Dude, and that's half the time.
Life is,
and that's half the time now, too. Get home, family gets home, kids are doing stuff. You're like, shit, never called anybody back.
It's like whenever my son David gets home, the first thing he's supposed to do, not go play, not turn on TV. He goes to the kitchen table and starts working on his homework. And sometimes, like if it's science work, I'm right there with him. If it's math, I'm like, son, you better go ask your sister to help you with that. And Ayla, she's 20. She knows some of this Common Core stuff. And I'm like, son, I cannot even start to comprehend this Common Core stuff, because I even explained to him, son, there was a whole different way we done this math back then.
Yeah.
Science
Look, I can't
really
do that
hasn't
Common
changed.
Core. I taught Adeline like the way I did it, and I was like, do your Common Core, but remember this too, because it's way easier in the real life. You ain't going to do that stuff, which I don't think they're pushing it nearly as bad now.
I don't think they are either, but that would be something. Her showing up 2 + 2 was 4, and the teacher's like, how'd you learn?
Look, there's like a crazy expanded way to do that. And I was like, this is overly complex. I was like, in the real world, like if you're trying to build something or whatever, you ain't going to do that. Let me show you do this.
Hold on, let me draw these squares over here.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to counting with your hands and fingers and toes?
Well, my dad was a carpenter growing up. And so, he'd be measuring stuff and be like, okay, this is, 23 and 3/16. And then, okay, it's got another section, it's like 7 1/4 or whatever. It's like, all right, you got to add these together. And so, he had to kind of learn that. And I'm like, you ain't going to do that with Common Core on a piece of wood with a pencil.
It's like with Ayla, whenever she gets wanting to bake cookies or something like that, it's like she will, one thing she'll do is like she'll take the chocolate chip cookie dough batter and mix it down with peanut butter cookie batter. And they're different recipes, different mixes and stuff like that. And she was like, well, how do I mix them? I'm like, well, you can do the math on it, or either you fix this batch, fix that batch, mix them together that way. But one thing, I walked in one day when she was actually trying to figure out math. Here she is talking to her phone, asking Google to do the math for her. And I'm like, I remember when I was in school, they said we'd never have a calculator with us or we'd have something to help. Well, guess what? The teachers were wrong. So, but the technology nowadays, it's gotten good, but it's gotten where people are too reliant on it. Most people nowadays can't even read a general road map.
I showed Adeline, we're at a gas station or a truck stop, the road atlases. I was like, these used to have one of those in every car. So you have road atlas, and I was showing her.
And it wasn't no little
Rand
one.
McNally.
It was like a big
you had the
old
Rand
book.
McNally big book. Everybody I knew growing up had a Rand McNally in their car.
Man, what you talk about? When I was going through
Their business had to drop tremendously once iPhones and they could do GPS. Came out.
I was looking through where I got all my literature about weather, fire, and all that stuff last night, and I actually come across one of my atlases that I used to keep in my truck.
Yeah.
But considering I stay just mainly here in South Georgia and North Florida, where I know most of the roads, I don't carry one with me. Now, earlier this year, when I went over to Montgomery and was chasing during a high-risk severe weather day, I made sure I had my atlas with me just in case technology failed on me. I had a backup plan.
Yeah.
So, and that was its own little interesting day back then, because I had started that morning in Montgomery, Alabama, and not even a full 48, I wouldn't even say 40 hours later, I'm sitting on the coast from Brunswick watching a tornadic supercell go off the coast.
Yeah.
So
Look, which I want to get into your weather stuff, but I remember something I was going to say earlier about the messaging stuff. The greatest thing I learned with technology right now, because I'm so absent-minded, like, man, I got to text this person in the morning, or it'd be like 10 o'clock at night, be like, man, I can't call them now or something. Was somebody showed me like the send later for a message. Oh, man, look, I'll be sitting like, 801, I'm going to make sure this message gets sent.
Exactly.
Or whatever the more, or like Outlook too, like, which Outlook I knew you could do it, but somebody showed me the text message. Yeah, you can hit over here at send later. Look, that's been a lifesaver to me, so I don't have to remember, like, set alarm to text or message or whatever.
I know, and see, used to you'd have to set up an alarm to do it. Now, in the text message itself, you can schedule it to send out like the following morning.
Yeah, dude, I do that all the time because I'll be like, I got to remember to do this or text whoever.
What's that?
It's too late on.
Your ADD and everything just it scatters your brain at times. So, because you can be like, well, look at squirrel, do something like that. So,
which the weather thing? Have you always been interested in the weather, or is that just something you decided you was gonna? Which, if you don't know, preface: Larry is a storm chaser. Also, he's very knowledgeable about the weather and storms. So if there's like bad stuff in the area, Larry gets overly hit up by people. He's I guess I'd say he's an amateur meteorologist. I know
that's the best way how to put it.
Yeah. So, so if there's like some bad stuff going, we live in South Georgia, and if anybody's not familiar with South Georgia, we get some rough storms and tornadoes here. Like, I was working in Americas from the tornadoes here that night, but every year, pretty much, there's some good cells going around, usually multiple times every year, and there'll be some bad storms. But I'll be texting Larry, hey, anything bad coming this way, or what are they saying?
Hey, I'm watching this one storm over near Seminole County.
Yeah, because I'll be watching, and we have a ton of weather alerts now, thankfully. But anyways, what got you interested in that? Have you always been into weather and stuff?
The funny thing about it, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I used to be deathly afraid of thunderstorms.
Yeah,
I would, if it start thunder and lightning, I was scared crapless. Excuse my French, I was scared shitless. You know. And my mom, she'd always told me, the thunder's the angels moving furniture for a new angel to come in. And this is well before the movie Twister ever come out. And I started developing an interest in weather. So I was at Cox Elementary School. I started checking out books about weather, how to predict it, and this was old 80s 70s, 80s stuff, in the early 90s I was reading. And this is back when there was very seldom documentaries about tornadoes.
Yeah.
And I remember PBS had a thing about tornadoes, a Nova special.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it, and it really fascinated me. And of course, Twister come out in the mid 90s, and I was a kid in a candy store watching it. And there's a few misconceptions from the movie, but I started learning more in depth on it. And of course, the internet helped a lot with my knowledge and learning. Back in 2000, right after I moved over to Homerville, the Jacksonville Weather Service office had a Skywarn class over in Waycross at the Emergency Management Agency, and I signed up for it. 2 days later, I'm sitting over there. Perry Blackburn, who was the assistant EMS director, and also he deals with EMA and Skywarn over there. He got it lined up, and Fred Johnson was a meteorologist that taught the class, and I was a kid in a candy store with it. And back then, you actually had to sit through the advanced portion because they really got in depth. They sent me the test and a little bit of study materials, took the test, sent it to them, and got certified as a Skywarn spotter, and that's been almost 26 years ago. Huh. So, in which that my knowledge has just really expanded more. I've done online classes. I did actually get accepted into Penn State Meteorology, but due to some events that happened a few years ago, I actually had to withdraw, going and taking the classes. And I'm still looking at, going and try to get at least a certificate for weather forecasting.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of time and nice little chunk of change to go actually go through those online classes and get certified. But I know some meteorologists, not only on a government level with the Weather Service, but actual broadcast meteorologists. And some of them I'm real close friends with, got their personal cell phone numbers. We'll even text and talk about upcoming storms and all that. And I knew I was on the right path when some of these meteorologists, like, man, for you to be somebody that is not a meteorologist, you know your stuff on what you need to know instead of just a person who's watched Twister just hop in a car, and just ride around. That's how you end up getting killed or putting yourself in danger. And I've had so many people talk about, man, you ought to let me just ride with you. It's dangerous, and very few people have actually rode with me. But the biggest thing about it, if somebody's riding with me, I at least want them to know what to look out for. Especially if I'm driving, because I've got the setup with a laptop and, everything else, including the weather instruments on my truck. But, it's, whenever you can start off on it, what may be a spur of the moment chase, I'm just going after this one sale. I might get home 14 to 24 hours later, depending on where I end up going. And with this being South Georgia, like April a couple years ago, I met up under a tornadic supercell, Dr. Reed Timmer, who is nationally known for his tornado intercepts and being on Discovery Channel Storm Chasers. I met him in Valdosta. Didn't even know he was in the area. I'd been on the storm for about a good 45 minutes before he even got there. He was coming from Florida. And I actually ran up with him, and I was actually on his live stream without me even knowing it. And my phone was blowing up while I was trying to do my live stream, showing my followers what was going on. They're like, hey, man, we see you on Reed's stream. What the heck? And lo and behold, there he is right beside me in the red light. So, but it's like whenever our severe weather happens here, normally we get the isolated cells that come out ahead of it, the isolated supercells, but then we get the squall line, or either we'll get a lull after the first line of supercells, then another line of supercells. So South Georgia weather is a whole lot trickier compared to what they see over in the Midwest. Everybody thinks the Midwest is tornado capital. Unfortunately, Alabama leads the nation with most F5s. The strongest tornado ever. Alabama is...
And we get all of them after they come to Alabama.
Back in 2011, we had so many F5s that come over from Alabama into northern Georgia. Georgia's had its fair share of some pretty strong tornadoes. Mitchell County, where I work at, they have been nailed more than once by nocturnal strong tornadoes, EF3s. Well, F3s at the time. Valentine's Day, they actually had two to hit, one right after another. And then a couple years later, same neighborhood got nailed with another F3 tornado. And, not all the tornadoes that we have here in South Georgia are, visible. Most of them are rain wrapped. We got different types of storms that happen, and the South is just overabundant with moisture. So we actually get something called high precipitation supercells. And when that happens, the rain starts to fall right where the hook echo is of the storm, and it obscures the tornado and rain. And those are the worst ones to ever get caught up in, because you will not see it until, bam, it's right there on you. And most people don't know that. And the tornado that you was talking about that you had up in Americas, that was March 1st, 2007.
Now, was it an F3? Well, I don't know what they were classified.
I think it was borderline EF4. That is right when they come out. It was right before. Yeah, it was F3, if I'm not mistaken. Right there at that time that outbreak happened, that was the first high risk for South Georgia in a very long time. That was a high risk day. Those are very rare. And at that same time, they were testing out the warning-based polygons. Back then, they still done a county-based tornado warning, but at that time, they were testing the polygons that we see nowadays. And that tornado that went through Americus, because a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at the old warning text and all that. And the way how it went, they would give you a pinpoint of roughly where it was. And that thing get come round through town and kept on trucking.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing was the biggest area was hit was the business district.
The business district and the hospital.
Yeah. And so it was the luckiest thing because it came through what, 7, 8 at night? It was later on.
It was after dark, and that outbreak hit. It started during the daytime. It hit Enterprise, Alabama, killed 8 students at the high school over there, and then killed a couple of people in their residential homes. And that storm went on over toward Richland. And that was from that initial supercell. And then later on that evening, the second wave of supercells started. And that's right before Newton got hit. And there was fatalities there in Newton. And Americus had just got nailed. And some of the guys from Mitchell County were actually going up to Americus to help. And turn around had to go back because Mitchell County, the storm started southwest of Newton, skidded along Newton, hit the mobile home park, killed the family there, and then went just north of Baconton, and then went across into Worth County over by Morey's store, and went just south of Sylvester on over towards Sumter before it dissipated before the Tipton County line. And that was a long track supercell, but it was a wedge tornado at the time. And
see, I was just a firefighter on the truck then. But I don't remember hearing any alerts or anything. Like, I just knew there were thunderstorms in the area, and I can tell you what I was doing. I was in the weight room with 2 or 3 other firefighters. We were playing Tiger Woods golf because after hours, I was sitting there yeah, back in the day on Xbox 360. And all of a sudden, all these people started running in the station 1. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Because people were hollering, and I came out, went to the big bay they had. People running in. There was hail and all kind of stuff. And that's when it came in. And then
how bad did your ears pop?
I don't remember. I do remember Lee County when I was working there, the tornadoes hit and it caved in the bay door onto the fire truck. But yeah, when it came in, we didn't know anything, or at least I didn't. I don't remember any kind of alerts or anything. This was 2007. But yeah, people started running in, and all of a sudden it got real bad. And one station was blocked in, and we had no comms, and had to go to the hospital and everything.
Right after that outbreak happened in 2007, the National Weather Service itself done a service assessment based off of it. And that was one of the things that they found was the lack of communication for the emergency alerts that went out at the time. Because back then, most people relied on hearing the warning just based off the TV or their radio station, and nowadays, everybody's got cell phones and they have the wireless emergency alerts.
Yeah.
So if you're in that polygon, you're bound to get an alert as long as your alerts are turned on. Outdoor sirens are still used, but they're not heavily relied on. And the Weather Enterprise, James Spann is one of the world's best about it. And I echo what he says. Don't rely on the outdoor siren. That is designed to warn people outside. You get a storm with heavy wind and rain, and you got a siren a mile down the road from you, and you're inside your house, you're not going to hear it, especially when you factor in the thunder happening, traffic. The wind could be blowing those sound waves away from you. And, of course, the weather radios are more known about nowadays, so people know about them. And, of course, you got social media. That's another big thing.
Well, even most dispatches now will alert EMS and fire, hey, reported tornado activity or whatever, they'll get.
Normally they're pretty good. Some dispatch centers I have seen and heard, they're normally delayed about 5 minutes. I don't know if that's something on their part or whatever, but most of the time you're getting a warning right after it comes out because the dispatch centers are more technological, savvy now. So they're finding out about it basically And we said 9 times out of 10, I'm telling you about storms about 30 minutes before they start popping out the warnings, because I'm always watching them on radar. And it's like I say, if they hold together, this will most likely be tornado warned. And 9 times out of 10, I'm spot on with it. But there's sometimes the storms, they will dissipate. They just won't strengthen anymore. So, the technology has gotten better, but still, it's like what I tell people. If you're under a tornado warning, just be prepared. If you don't feel safe, don't wait on the warning. Go take cover. Nobody's going to fault you for that.
Look, I know we, well, actually, my wife, she, she keeps up with the weather. Well, I keep up with the weather as it pertains to my job, more or less. I actually don't like storms, and she don't like the bad weather. And so she'll kind of be like, she heard that this is going to be bad, and then I'll kind of look into it, or I'll see you post or something. But, we're prepared now. I keep a generator. Well, actually, we got 2 generators, but I make sure we got a generator ready to go and all our cords and everything else, which now, after, especially like Americus, remember back then we lost all the cell towers. I got long-range walkie-talkies and stuff. Gave one to my sister who lives like 5 miles away because, when I got knocked out, there was no communications.
It's like you hear about the folks with the amateur radios and everything. And some people look at them like they're crazy. Those folks know what they're doing because the amateur radios, God forbid, in the event of a nuclear attack, with the EMP, most ham radios are still going to work, because it's older technology that, it's obsolete. No, it's not obsolete. That stuff is made to last.
Yeah.
And you could take something as simple as a wire clothes hanger and make it into an antenna and talk over 100 miles away. Man, those folks, they know what they're doing,
Well, that's even back in the day. My dad was all big in CB. And he had CB radio's truck, big, the big, long, heavy ones with extendable antennas.
Yep.
He had to make old handheld bricks. But, that was the thing back in the day. I don't know if anybody, I guess truckers still do CB, but I don't see, it used to be everybody had a CB in the truck.
I got one sitting in my truck, and it's hooked up, and I got the antennas for it and all that stuff. And my CB actually doubles as a weather radio. It does a weather alert. So if one gets issued, automatically get notified, even though it ain't like my phone don't go off with about 20 different other messages.
Yeah.
But normally, if we're looking at bad weather, I know about it, a couple of days ahead of time because, I'm always looking at the forecasts and the models and all that. And leading up to the event, so I'm normally like, hey, this is what we're expecting. It's a possibility. Not set in stone, but this could happen. So 9 times out of 10, normally if something happens, I know about it before, about the possibility of it happening.
Yeah. I don't know what's up with my light there. Let me turn that joker back on.
Probably got too hot.
I wouldn't think so. It's probably me messing with stuff. Let me see it real quick.
A few moments later, Brad had a factory reset it.
Nah, it's me turning the air on, and I think they just love any radio signal they'll get flipped on or off. Like, because I kicked on the air.
Part 15 of the FCC rules states that this object.
I was going to ask you something a minute ago. I forgot I was going to ask you. But anyways, you graduated. Did you graduate from Colquitt County?
No, actually, I did not. I dropped out when I was 17, right when I moved over to Homerville. But back in 2002, I went back and got my GED through Wiregrass. Well, Okefenokee Technical College.
Yeah.
I went through and got my GED, and, one of the things I done, I promised the former chief of police, God rest his soul, I promised him on his deathbed, I was like, dude, I'm going to go get my GED because they was wanting me to get into law enforcement so much. And that was the main thing holding me back was me not having my GED. Yeah. So I could, go get trained as a jailer and dispatcher and potentially go to ABAC to get my, post certification. And looking back, I'm glad I did not get more into law enforcement because hats off to them. Those guys
Yeah.
go through some hell. They really do.
I agree.
But, we still catch hell just from the EMS side of it, but not as much ridicule as law enforcement gets.
When I was in high school, when I started off freshman year, they had like I'm trying to remember what it's called. It was like a law enforcement class, but I can't remember what they called
An
it.
Explorer program?
No, it was like a class you could take at the high school. Like it was like a legit class. But anyways, I did it, and I was kind of interested in law enforcement. But I'm glad also I didn't go into it. But yeah, I don't like the way law enforcement's going either, because we do love them, especially from an EMS standpoint.
Yeah, because guess what? If they ain't showing up, I ain't going up there. I ain't doing anybody good if I got extra holes punched in me. Know.
Yeah, I was thinking. Well, I was thinking about a story, me and you, and the person getting tasered. But I'm trying to think if I really want to tell the story or not.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was. Matter of fact, I was talking to my partner about that a few weeks ago because we had brought up about law enforcement getting on scene because it was a possible domestic, and I'm like, if it's possible, I'm not going to risk it. I'd rather them show up. Well, why? Well, for one, what good am I doing to anybody if we're hurt, And I was like, you remember Brad Kent? Yeah, I've heard of him. I was like, well, me and him, we went on this one call over at so-and-so place, and we show up in this guy. He was irate, and he popped Brad a couple of times, so we called law enforcement. Law enforcement walks in the house, and the officer gets busted in the nose.
Yeah, a little back, which anybody that's getting an EMS or just started, I can't stress enough. Like, if you get called to a domestic or anything like that, we always preach BSI, scene safe. But yeah, any kind of domestic or like that, you make sure you got law enforcement. Well, we got called to, it was like altered mental status or something. It was nothing that gave you the idea.
It didn't give us the hint that law enforcement needed to be there. It was something about I think it was altered mental status.
It was something. I don't even remember what it was. It was nondescript. We got there, and the guy was acting erratically, which we come to learn out that he was, early onset Parkinson's, Alzheimer's or something?
He had some mental, ailment like that going on.
But we got there, and which is a little background on the story. The guy was, he wasn't irate, but he was, I guess, becoming...
He was becoming aggressive and hostile.
Yeah. And so we went in the house, and he was in the house like that. And so we got him out of the house because family was there, and he, I remember, threw a bunch of dishes off the counter. Or was that the second when he came back in? I can't remember.
He done the dishes when he went back in, but we got him out.
We got him out of the house, and we got him out of the back.
Because we was trying to get him to the truck so we can at least check his vitals.
Get him out of the situation.
And he pops you in the chest.
Yeah, and that's what I was like, which it wasn't. I wasn't injured per se, but I was like, hey, we need law enforcement here. Like, this guy is not acting
We seen it
appropriately.
de-escalating very quickly.
Yeah, he wasn't obviously in his right mind. And I remember we tried to keep him outside, and I told you I said, call law enforcement now. Get law enforcement here because this guy's, I don't want to fight nobody on the truck or anything. And I remember that's when he went back inside. And I, when
followed behind, and I was waiting on law enforcement, and I walk in right before law enforcement done.
Well, we came in. I remember you were trying to corral him in a section of the house because he was all over. And I think that's when he pushed the dishes off the counter, just took his arm, slid all these dishes off the counter.
He went from the kitchen into the dining room.
Yeah.
And that's right when he done that with the dishes. And I was like, look, dude, let's just stay right here instead of going all over the place. I was afraid if he went back in the kitchen, he was going to get a weapon. Yeah. Per se, a butcher knife.
Mm-hmm.
And right about that is when Flo walked in.
Yeah. She came in, and I'm on the door. I'm trying to paint a picture here. It's kind of an open floor plan-ish. There's some couches, and there's a kind of a living room off to the side with no couches where it's just kind of open space. And then kind of 90 degrees from that is a wall, and there's a kitchen and a dining area. It's kind of open floor plan with a single wall that was, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 foot long. That was kind of kitchen, and then a doorway wrapped around from the kitchen that faced the front door through the living room where the couches were.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on the open area over there because this guy's gone around to the kitchen and I think he was coming out of the kitchen, and he was going back towards the front door, and I'm walking from like the open area trying to get to Larry and the guy. And that time, he got to the front door area right as law enforcement came in the front door, and I didn't know this at the time because it all happened so fast. But he punched the officer in the face, and I'm talking about in a matter of seconds. This happened, punched, and he was tasered, and because you punch law enforcement, it's not going to end well. And I remember family was upset, but I was like, man, and I was like, what just happened? And then I remember getting tased. Like he just punched her in the face.
Yeah,
and I said,
Flay, she walked in the door, and I was like, hey, Flay. She was like, hey, what's going on? And he just walked right up to her and dead square punched her in the nose.
Yeah.
And she stood back, grabbed the taser.
Look, it was quick too. Like she said, taser. Like I'm talking about, all this happened in like a matter of like 5 seconds. It was fast. He came around the corner and she opened the door and he was right there. And it was like she didn't make it 3 feet in the door, I don't think.
He hit the ground hard, and I remember the abundance of law enforcement we had right afterwards. And it was one of those eye-opening moments, you know.
But I mean, in the grand scheme, it wasn't bad. I mean, it could have been a lot worse.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because if he would have because he wasn't in his right mind. It's nothing against him. I mean, he had a medical issue going on, but it could have been a lot worse. But yeah. Anyways, you made me think of that. Talking about law enforcement.
Yeah, because they were like, he shouldn't have got taped. What else did you want them to do? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, it ain't like they could have just held his hand and sung "Kumbaya," you know.
Yeah.
Something had to be done to de-escalate it. We tried to de-escalate some. And, you know, I try to keep him in a safe spot away from any weapons. And he punched the officer like he did. So, as bad as I hate to say it, you know, something like that, just, you know, you don't just get a slap on the
I don't know if you could have calmed that guy down because he wasn't in a good spot. Wasn't a good frame of mind. And I think that's what some people don't understand. It's like people like that, like they're not purposely trying to do it. Like, because they're just not in the right mind. And that guy, you know, he was not in a good spot. But yeah, I just remember that. That was a while back. I was telling somebody about that story. I was like, man, it happened with a quickness. Like that guy got amped up kind of quick, and he wasn't. I don't remember if he was mad at. I don't even think he was mad at us. I think he was just whatever. Just had an episode going on. But anyways, that's how quick. If you're new into EMS, whatever, how quickly stuff can change. That was not a good spot.
Yeah, we've seen our fair share of some pretty interesting ones, and you know, some other ones, you know.
Yeah. Well, what else do you do in these days? You're still just doing the weather, working on the ambulance?
Weather, ambulance, still removing snakes whenever.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. Larry's like I guess an amateur herpetologist.
Yeah,
you would say.
Well, we'll just put it like this: I'm a jack of all trades, but a master at none.
Yeah, Larry's my snake man, which I grew up, you know, in South Outdoors. I know pretty much a fair amount of snakes, but every now and then I'll see something like, hey, I'll text Larry a picture. What's this?
And normally, as long as I'm not busy or something like that, I'm real quick to respond back.
Yeah, especially I send you a picture of a nice copperhead.
Oh yeah, gotta love my copperheads. But yeah, I still do the snake relocation. I volunteered with the Rattlesnake Conservancy out of Jacksonville. Help with the education, you know, and of course I'm a part of the Free Snake Relocation Directory. Just about a month ago, I went down to Valdosta, got called about a woman said that she had a timber rattler in her backyard. And it was one of the biggest timber rattlers I've ever seen. And I've been dealing with snakes ever since I was like 12 years old. So, you know, and I've dealt with my fair share of diamondbacks, timber rattlers, moccasins, you know, venomous and non-venomous.
Now, have you ever got bit by any of the venomous snakes?
Unfortunately, I have.
Did you have to get an antivenom, or was it just like a dry bite?
Dry bite.
You weren't worried about it? Didn't swell up or anything?
Oh, I was worried about it. The SGMC costed a pretty penny.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it, the first venomous snake to ever get me was a dusky pygmy rattlesnake.
You've been bit more than once?
I have been bit more than once.
How many times have you been bit?
Venomous or non-venomous?
Well, venomous.
I was about to say non-venomous.
If I said non-venomous, I'm sure you've been bit a lot just handling
Dude,
snakes.
I've lost count
Yeah.
on the non-venomous. So far as venomous, I want to say at least 3.
Yeah.
The first time I went to the hospital,
Yeah.
8 hours after I got bit, but it was more or less anxiety that screwed around with me. Luckily, the bites I've had have been dry bites, and the last 2 times, you could say it's a bite because the fang actually penetrated the skin, but it was more or less like a really good scratch from the fang.
Yeah.
But the pygmy actually implanted its fang in my finger, and luckily it was a dry bite. And the other 2 times it's been with the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. The last time was about 3 years ago, and it just basically nicked my finger because I was trying to release it.
Yeah.
And I broke one of my rules I'd set. Never touch a live venomous snake. Even with the equipment I've got now, at certain times I will do something called tailing a snake. That's where you have the head with the snake hook and you're holding on to the very tip of its tail.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to do that with certain ones. Most of the time you can do a double hook and carry a snake that way. But sometimes due to space constraints, you got to be able to grab them and move them. So, but I got that timber rattler. I released it the next day in a very heavily wooded area where there's proper habitat for it so it can thrive. And my biggest thing is just educate folks, which Georgia's home of 46 species of snakes.
Yeah.
Only 6 of them are venomous. You got 3 rattlesnakes, 2 pit vipers, and 1 leopard.
Yeah. Ask Adeline knows a leopard. We actually, one of her little trivia podcasts, I was talking to her about what is only neurotoxin. What's the leopard in Georgia, the coral snake?
The eastern coral snake, and you can't always just go by the bands on it. You got to know what to look for. If you're not sure about it, don't screw with it.
Yeah.
That's simple.
I think that, if everybody should know this, and I'm going to say it just because you should know it, and I'm sure you've said this a bunch of times. If you don't know what it is, don't pick it up.
Exactly.
And damn sure don't try to just handle it with your hands, holding it like it's a pet rabbit.
And the other thing about it, the folks are like, oh, it looks harmless and all that. Man, if you're not sure, don't screw with it. Don't try to kill it.
Yeah.
And surely don't say, hold my beer and watch this. That's a common phrase around here. But most of the time when folks are bit by snakes, they're either trying to kill it, catch it, or screwing around with it in general. So
now I always heard, and actually, I've looked into it moderately, but it's been so long ago. Now, like the coral snake, being it's a lapid, and a neurotoxin, I've always heard that we don't really have an antivenom for that.
There is no longer an antivenom for the coral snake. The company that made it lost money by making it because 9 times out of 10, if you get bit by a coral snake, the venom's going to wear off, but what's going to end up happening, you're going to be intubated and put on a vent.
Yeah, so
that neurotoxin affects your diaphragm and your central nervous system, and it basically paralyzes your diaphragm. You can't breathe.
Yeah.
So they're going to put you on a vent and just let the venom run its course and wear off, versus your pit vipers, your 3 rattlesnakes and 2 pit vipers, the copperhead and the coral, cottonmouth, sorry. Those are the hemotoxin. Those are the ones that are going to cause the severe necrosis, the swelling, tissue damage. Those are the ones that you really need the antivenom, and the antivenom that we have is crowfab. Crowfab is not species specific here in South Georgia. What antivenom you get for the copperhead will work for the diamondback or the pygmy, because it's multi-species.
Yeah.
Crowfab is not going to work for a coral snake, to my knowledge. Now, granted, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
I don't have the advanced training on it. But crowfab is made for you pit vipers. And now, will the crowfab that we have here in South Georgia work for something over in the west, I do not know.
Yeah.
But, the snakes around here, all the other ones you ain't got to worry about. Just those 6. And it ain't so much to worry about it to kill them. Just keep your distance from it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't screw with it.
Did I ever tell you about a story of me picking up a copperhead when I was at a babysitter?
No.
I never told you a story. My dad, he was kind of, well, he wasn't a wild man, but he would, he taught me at a young age how to pin down a snake's head and pick them up. So I learned how to pick up snakes as a little kid. And when I was, I don't know, probably up into early grade school, I'd go to, we had like it was an old lady babysitter that would keep a bunch of, it was kind of like a little after school daycare, but this lady was, I remember her name was Betty. She was probably 75 years old. She'd keep a bunch of us kids at our house after school till parents came pick her up. It's just kind of after school, rural daycare, which I grew up above Atlanta, North Georgia. And anyways, she had some land behind her house. She liked some wood piles. We just go out there being like, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids. We just go out there and play. Just boys, boys. You play, climb trees, all kind of stuff. And anyways, I was over by this firewood pile, and I saw this pretty snake. I said, look at this snake. I never seen one like this before. It's pretty. So I grabbed a stick. I pinned down his head. I picked up the snake, and I brought the snake back. I was going to show Miss Betty this pretty snake. I walk up to Miss Betty, and this lady is an old Southern woman. Like, she's, you have little snus cans,
Oh, yeah.
And she'd, and I brought her that snake, and she about had a heart attack. And she told me to throw that snake down. I threw the snake down. I got my tail beat. And I'm sure my dad got in some trouble with his mom. But I brought up to her like a 2-foot-long copperhead. I grabbed from the wood pile. And I just brought her up, just carrying this copperhead. It's like, I don't know how old I was. I was probably 7 years old. But yeah, I just brought up this copperhead. Just brought it up to her. Hey, Miss Betty, look at this pretty snake. And I brought I don't know if I brought it in her house, but I do remember she
flipped out a bit.
Yeah, I remember she was very concerned. And I think my dad probably got in trouble by her and probably by.
You teaching that boy to pick up snakes?
But I mean, I remember my dad back in the day when VHS cameras first came out and you had the whole big news camera. It was basically what you had on your shoulder. I remember he had a video of him going hunting, and there was a huge diamondback crossing this road, and he got his buddy to get his camera out. It came like old nuclear-looking briefcase back in the day, a big camera.
Oh, yeah.
And pulled it out, and there's a video of him. He pinned this big, huge, like 6-foot-long diamondback down and picked it up and had his head in his hand. He was putting the head of the rattlesnake in his mouth.
Oh, heck no.
And stuff. So he was kind of a wild man with that. So it wasn't probably the best influence. But, yeah, like I wish I could find that video. It's probably...
It's somewhere out there.
It's probably somewhere in storage and some of my stuff since he passed away. But yeah, he picked up. He had it in his mouth, so that was kind of my influence. I've never been bit by a venomous snake. Knock on wood. I keep my distance now. But I mean, I'll pick up something if I know it's not venomous and show Adeline or something. When I finally saw that southern hognose a while back, that was cool in the yard. I never seen one of those.
Yeah.
And I think I texted you. I was like, "What is this snake?" And then finally
it's a hognose.
And finally he flattened out. I was like, "Oh, I know what this is."
Animal.
I'd never seen one before, and that was the coolest thing because I was like, This isn't a venomous snake. I was like, I don't know what this is because he was short and fat. And
well, you ready for the plot twist?
What's that?
Hognoses are mildly venomous.
Oh, really?
They are rear-fanged.
Oh.
The venom for it affects frogs and such.
Yeah.
And their fangs are in the very back of their mouth. They can still bite and penetrate the skin, but the venom is not really so far as like what we find in the pit vipers and the alepids,
Yeah.
But they are actually rear-fanged mildly venomous snakes.
Huh.
I have a western hognose at my house right now, and he's kept in captivity. And whenever I go to feed him, I'll free handle him. But he's so little, he can bite on my fingers. It ain't gonna do nothing. Now, if you get a full adult size one, you'll have to watch out for them if they get a hold of your finger, But most of the time, don't be touching frogs right beforehand, and they're not going to mistaken your fingers for food. So,
well, I remember when I saw him, my general policy, or I gotta say policy, my general thought process as soon as I see a snake, is it long and skinny or is it fat? Because if it's a fat snake, he's probably venomous without even having to get real close to him. Just as a general, I don't take this as the gospel, but generally here in Georgia, if you see a fat snake that looks, kind of fatter
short
than he is
and
long.
stalky.
Yeah, short and stalky. He's probably venomous, just as a very, very general rule of thumb. And this is Georgia. So if I see like a fattish looking snake, I'm like, what is that? And I remember looking at the hog nose, like, he was kind of fat, but I'm not familiar with what it is. And he was, I think he was real dark. He didn't have any markings. And I was like, that's not a copper. I was like, that's not a moccasin. But I was like, I don't know what he is. But and he didn't have triangle head or anything.
People actually mistaken banded water snakes for cottonmouths.
Yeah,
also,
all the time.
the hog noses, they will sometimes mistake them because of the dark body.
Yeah.
But the rule of thumb is if you're not sure about it, don't mess with it. It will go about its own way. If you want it to move right then, take a water hose, spray some water on it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, that will help enable them or, entice them to move.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, most time around here, if I find something, I just take them, pick them up with a
and if
stick
you're
or
not
something,
sure,
put a bucket,
of course,
take them, throw them in the woods.
And of course, if you're not sure, just shoot me a message. Hey, man, what kind is this? And I get those messages quite a good bit about folks. Hey, what kind of snake is this? I don't know what kind it is. And I even had Michelle. She sent me a message. It was, matter of fact, the day after I caught that timber rattler. She was like, what kind of snake is this? And it was a timber rattler, but somebody had cut off its rattles.
Huh.
So, and it was deceased in the middle of the road. But I'm like, that's a venomous timber rattler. Even though it's dead, they can still turn around and pop you.
Yeah.
Because their strike is so embedded in their nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
You touch the wrong spot, they can actually turn around and pop you and envenomate you.
It's like a timber rattlers. I remember, like in college, I was working a summer job doing landscaping at this place, and one of the guys who worked there, Robert. Shout out to Robert if you actually watch this. I think he's a Facebook friend, but he was putting pine straw around a bush, laying out pine straw. It was like, it was in the summer sometime, and put pine straw on the bush, and timber rattler popped him on the hand, or he got popped on the hand, pulled his hand back, and I think he saw the two fang marks and was like, "What the hell?" And looked back there, and there was I don't know how big, smallish, probably a couple feet long timber rattler.
Yeah.
Cane brake, as he called it. Same thing. Isn't it the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They are the exact.
And that joker, I remember, and well, later on, we had like a meeting. We had like a grounds department, and he came rolling up. He's like, "Yeah, I gotta go to the hospital," and what? He's like, "Yeah, I got bit by a rattlesnake," and he was all nonchalant about it, and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he had like a bucket. He went back to the truck that he was in from when he got popped, and grabbed like a shovel or something, killed the timber rattler, put it in a bucket, and then just drove up to the department, like the headquarters there, whatever, we all met. And so, yeah, go to the hospital. This rattlesnake bit me. And I remember thinking he was so nonchalant. I was like, what? And I was like, you're messing with me. And he's like, no, got it in a bucket. See my hand? His hand was starting to swell up. And they popped him on the hand. And I just remember, like, it always stuck with me, like how nonchalant he was. Yeah, I got popped by a timber rattler.
Yeah. And which that if anybody's ever listening to this, and God forbid you ever get bit, don't worry about trying to identify it, to kill it, to bring it up there with you. Just get to the ER.
Yeah. Don't take a live snake. If you can take a picture, or if somebody's with you, can just take a picture of said live snake without putting themselves in jeopardy. That will completely suffice with today's technology.
But that's the whole thing about the crow fab with it being across the board. Because they can look at it and their main question they're going to ask, well, was it a multicolored snake referring to the coral? If there's signs of envenomation, that's when they'll start looking at the possibility of giving the crow fab. But if it's looking like a dry bite or a non-venomous bite, they're not going to load you down with anti-venom because that stuff is insanely expensive.
And if you do get bit, I can tell you this from an emergency medical standpoint, is remember the time you got bit. And if you have any kind of pin or marker on you and you see swelling start, mark that
area and mark the time.
Mark where the swelling is at that point with the time on it, and just so they know like what it was when it started, to see how fast it's progressing, because that's what we'll do. And I've seen it progress really fast, especially if you get a hand bite or something.
Don't do tourniquets,
don't do
ice
that.
packs, none of that.
Yeah, you ain't trying to suck no venom out. But yeah, if you remember that, but I mean, if you can, it's not the end all be all. If you call EMS, they'll be there soon enough, and they're probably going to do the same thing. But yeah, sometimes you'll, especially get enough bite, you'll start swelling fast.
I'm messing around with the microphone just for the heck of it.
But yeah, I think it was a rattlesnake. Something had a kid get bit on the hand by got bit, and his ham was. I remember it swelling up fast. His ham starting to look like Marshmallow Man.
Looked
It was
like
puffed up real
looked
quick.
like the Michelin.
And it was only like 20-minute ride to the hospital. By the time I got to the hospital, I had marks all up his forearm.
Yeah, because
from where it was going.
Yeah,
I was just watching it, and it was going up fast. By the time we got to the hospital, I think it was always swollen up to like his elbow.
Check my phone real quick. All these text messages and everything. I'm so popular today.
So EMS wise, how's it on the truck these days? Are y'all still short? I've been so long.
When are we not short staffed?
I think that's everywhere.
But it's actually going good. Most of the time, we're fully staffed. We find coverage. God forbid something happens and somebody needs to be out. So we're lucky. And of course our boss, he will hop on the truck in a heartbeat if need be, and that's one thing that helps a lot.
Is y'all's call volume going up or theirs? Is it still about the same?
Oh, see, sometimes I swear it's gotten up. It's getting more. And, if we break it down to the nitty gritty on true, legit medical emergencies, if people only called for legit medical emergencies, you could staff that county one truck.
Yeah.
But with the amount of people calling for stuff that they should, really follow with their primary care doctor, that's what causes the abundance of the calls, or either they've been sick for the past 3 days and decide all of a sudden, oh, well, I just can't take it no more. I'm going to go to the ER because doctor can't see me today, or I don't want to see whoever their practitioner is, And we say it's just not a South Georgia, it's across the whole nation. But, we're here to help people. And I can't speak for all of BMS. I just speak from my experience, And, if you need an ambulance or you're in doubt, call, But, some things just go to your doctor about.
Yeah.
It's like somebody ain't pooped in 2 to 3 days. Yeah, go to your doctor. If you stubbed your toe, yes, it probably hurt, but did you take something for it? No. Well, the pain just ain't going to go away. It's like one call I've had before, somebody had a toothache for 5 days. Have you taken anything for it? No. Well, why not? I don't feel like taking anything.
Have you called anybody about it? No.
Have you been to your dentist? Tried to get into your dentist? No, not at all. This is at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I can't sleep, though.
And I get you might not be able to sleep, but a little bit of, we're willing to help people, but people do have to help themselves,
Yeah. It worries me just from, I guess I worry about myself just because, I've been doing this, I guess public safety 20 years. I've had my medic, 17 years because I got my medic in 08. But it worries me because I don't want to be a bad influence on somebody. But, man, you get burnt out on some of that stuff. But
yes.
you try not to have a bad attitude about it. And I don't want to influence anybody new that's, like to be a bit, because everybody who's been in this long enough will go through a phase of being burnt out.
Very
just
true.
Just because of everything involved, from call volume to the calls, from bad calls to BS calls to whatever.
And you'll get your fair share of all of them.
And I see new people that come in that are trying to emulate attitudes of old people, and I'm like, man, you ain't even been this long enough to be burnt out. Quit playing. And which sometimes I feel like maybe that's bad of me because I don't know what's going on with them, but you can tell. Like, man, just quit playing. You're not being burnt out isn't cool. Like having that attitude, and I try to catch myself. Like even people like coming new to flight. Like I try not to have a bad attitude, but some days nobody has great days every day. But I see that on the ambulance too. Like you're not impressing anybody, like being like that. But it's just, I don't know. I guess it's always kind of been like that. Maybe I'm seeing it more, but I feel like there wasn't as many bad attitudes before.
Have you watched the movie Code 3 yet?
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
What did you think of it?
You know, I mean, it's realistic, the aspect of the type of calls I get, but, you know, that's a bad day he had if that all happened in one day. You know, it pretty much took all your calls from like a year and put them on. Not to say that couldn't happen, but...
Oh, it possibly could, especially, you know, in a setting of L.A., but for us in rural South Georgia, that's like a year's, you know, noteworthy of certain calls.
Yeah.
And not every day do you get, you know, a call where you get Rosk or you're having it out with the doctor or, God forbid, a pediatric code, you know. But, and I'm not going to lie, when I watched the movie, I laughed my head off so hard. I was
It's the most
tears.
accurate EMS movie I've seen. But accurate
no offense to Nicolas Cage, but, you know.
Yeah.
But the part, and I'm not trying to spoil it for ones who have not seen it, but the part when he had a pediatric code, he went to his boss and was like, I need to go. That right there really struck out to me because we try to be strong, and of course, we give each other hell on the truck. We do. But sometimes there comes a time when you don't need to give a person hell or try to bust their chops, because mental health is something that us in EMS tried to overlook and be in denial about, when mental health is a true thing that all of us in general, you know, really need to take better care of ourselves about. But whenever that part happened in that movie, that struck a big nerve with me, because I've had my bouts of depression and PTSD, and you know, the way how he was trying to leave and he was told, no, you don't need to leave, blah blah. You know, your mental health, what good are you to anybody if you're not there?
Yeah, I go round and round. And this is just me talking here. I am definitely no mental health expert or like a debriefing expert, even though this podcast is called Debrief. But I often wonder, and this is just from my own mindset, of is the best thing on some of these things just to not get back on a truck? Because I kind of feel like, to face it, sometimes you got to get back on a truck and get back to work. Not to say you shouldn't reflect on these things, but I kind of feel like sometimes, you know, because for a long time there, and I don't know if this is still policy, it was like they would have like the immediate incident debrief stuff. And I remember thinking, I was like, man, I ain't even had time enough to process this to give you an accurate assessment of where I'm at mentally. Like, this just happened. Like, why don't you come back in like a week? Like, when I've had to think about this.
Chance where I've actually had time to sit there by myself and think about it, process it.
And I know there's probably scientific studies on that, but just from like a first-hand perspective, you know, I've been in a couple of them when there's been bad wrecks or bad whatever, and I'm like, I don't even know what to tell you right now. Like, I ain't even fully thought about this. Like, hey, sure, I guess I'm all right. Like, I don't know. Why don't you come back in a week and talk to me? You know, and thankfully, like, you know, my service I work for has got a very good EAP program, and they recognize it just because of the critical nature of the stuff we do, which I don't want to discount anybody in any form of public service. And I'll come back to that. I don't want to go on too big a tangent, but I have something to say about that. But it's just the nature of it, you know. I remember talking about pediatrics. I'll never forget this. It was a bad 2-car accident. Somebody was crossing a 4-lane highway. There was, it was like a curved car, more or less T-bone, 2 cars, and there were multiple people in each car. And we were second or third in ambulance. And I remember, I think they're trying to extricate an adult out of the front of it, and I was on the ambulance. And I got in the back of it, climbed the back of this 4-door sedan, big 4-door sedan, and there's stuff thrown everywhere. You know, one side was kind of crushed in. And I get in the back to hold C-spine or to help get this guy out of the car. I don't even remember specifically what I was doing. Probably that. Because they were trying to pop the door off, but the back door was open. And I got in there, and when I get in there, I'm stepping on something in the footwell, and I look down, and it's a kid. And it was like, I don't even know how old, 5, 6, 7-year-old. And I remember I kind of freaked out. I was like, there's a kid on the floor. And they said, he's gone. They're like, don't worry about it. Like, he's gone. We got to get this person out. And it was one of those things where, you know, you don't have the resources, and that person's conditions are not compatible with life.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, like, there's a kid in the floor, like I just stepped on, who was not secured, got hit at a high rate of speed, and got thrown in the car. And they had already assessed them, but he was more or less trapped in the bottom. But they're trying to get out the person that's got a chance. And that was, and I was more mad that they didn't tell me.
He told you.
That
could have been
which it wasn't necessarily their fault or anything. I mean, somebody could have said something, but they're working, and it's one of those things that fell by the wayside. At the time, that is not the most important information that they're trying to pass on with what they're trying to pass. You know what I mean? And it always stuck with me because I was like, what am I stepping on? I looked down at a little kid.
Yeah. And
it's a sad thing, and those things stick with you. And I've talked with Ashley about this because I've been doing it so long, and we both have that. I think there is a buildup of PTSD, like you don't even think about. Like you don't. It's not like it's not like it keeps me up at night.
Trigger it just out of the blue.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like I hate talking about it. It's just I don't know how to describe it. I'm not an expert on it, but you get this, and especially, which is why I want to talk to some of these people that have been doing it forever. That are like, as we would say, the dinosaurs of EMS. They started a lot of this in Georgia from the beginning. And I don't want
when they was building it from scratch, they didn't know some of the things we do know now.
Yeah, and it's not so much just to hear like war stories from them or whatever. It's just I want to hear, that they've been doing it longer than I am. How they've managed, life. Because some of the people I've talked to, or I want to talk to, and I don't want to name drop anybody because I'm not trying to pressure them to come on or anything. I want to come on of their own free will and volition, as you would say. But they're excellent people. And if they've struggled with stuff, before there were any resources, and before they had, resources from like mental health to resources of like backup,
Yep.
How are things? Because I just feel like it's a whole wealth of information that's going to get lost. But anyways, you're talking about pediatrics. I'm sure everybody's had multiple pediatrics. It's just always stuck with me because that was probably one of the first instances of that. But what I wanted to come back to was when I got into flight, going back to, like the critical nature of what I do now, which I feel a thing of telling people like I'm a flight paramedic because ultimately I feel like I'm just a paramedic. I get to work on a helicopter.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of people could do it.
But I will say this though, while you're getting your thought process, me and you, we worked a motorcycle accident north end of the county.
Yeah.
The guy with the log truck, and we loaded him up because we requested a bird, and we got there on scene, realized we didn't need a bird, and we canceled the bird, and it was first call of the day.
Yeah.
Me and you was on the truck together, and I remember
was that like up past Tyson?
Yeah, it was north of Tyson.
I think I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
And I remember we loaded him up, and he was like, "Man, am I going to be okay?" And he was in shock in a sense. And I remember I looked at him. You was up at the head of the stretcher. We had just loaded him up. And I looked at him and was like, "Look, my partner, he's a paramedic, but he's also a flight medic. He just ain't on a bird right now. But you got some of the best care possible for you compared to, some other folks that could do. He's more trained in critical stuff and everything." And I remember we got 2 lines on him. And then right after that, he was like, "Let's go ahead and get on up because of the MOI." And I remember, because I was bragging about it in a sense, that you're a flight medic, but on the truck that day.
Yeah.
And the guy calmed down a little bit that I noticed just from knowing that he's got somebody higher trained up versus regular paramedic. And no offense to regular paramedics, because, hey, y'all can do more than my little advanced EMT butt can do. So, but I remember me just telling them, "Look, my partner, he's a flight medic, you're in good hands, And I just remember him calming down so much. And that Rex always stood with me a little bit, but, it ain't something I think about every day,
Yeah.
That right there about, right when you said that, sometimes you tell folks you're a flight medic, that's what made me think of that.
Yeah.
because he was real nervous, and that calmed him down some, knowing that he had somebody highly trained,
Yeah.
right there with him.
I guess I just feel like it's kind of, or I guess I feel like I can feel, you can call him a little pompous saying, "Oh, I'm a flight medic," which is what I do. But I guess the greater point, like when I started flight, there was a flight medic, which in this field of flight medicine, and even on the truck to a degree, there's with some people, there's a fair amount of wiener measuring, trying to put it politely, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. And I remember this guy, he'd been doing it for a while, he's trying to like scare, people try to talk big and bad about stuff, and like they're trying to scare you, and like it's a wiener measuring contest. I'm trying to get my language better because I got 2 daughters and I've been working public safety. So if you encounter me outside of this and I start cussing really bad, you can be like, "Hey, stop it," because it's too bad a habit. Public safety for 20 years will get you doing this. But anyways, he was talking
6
about
6 months will get you doing that.
this is true. Yeah, we're about as bad as a sailor. You hang around us. You got your professional voice, and then you got venting. Yeah, you got your venting voice on the truck or whatever. But anyways, this other flight medic was talking kind of big and bad, talking about a call, and I remember it was like a mundane thing. Like I come from fire department, and originally, and a habit that was instilled in me, which I don't do as much now. But when I started, I used to always polish my boots because it was a habit from fire department. I would polish my boots. I just thought it was a sign of professionalism. When I worked at fire department, you had to have polished boots, and so I kind of took pride in that. It's one thing I always kept till probably the past couple years in flight medic when they came out with these, new, more comfortable like Under Armour style boots, that you can't polish.
It's more cloth than leather.
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically you try to polish anything, but probably ain't gonna look very good. Probably gonna make it look worse.
It'll make your socks turn multicolor.
But anyways, this other flight medic said, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Man, I don't know. I just think it looks good having polished boots. Some always stuck with me." And he went on this tangent. "Oh man, you're gonna get blood all over those boots, and you're gonna have to throw your boots away." And I was like, "Man, they're waterproof and they're polished. Kind of worst case scenario, I'm gonna have to put new laces in them. Like it's not that big a deal. It's nothing anybody else has not encountered. It's worked any kind of fire EMS, whatever, law enforcement. I mean, blood, bodily fluids happen. You clean it just like anything else. You place what you need to." And I remember he kept going about, "Oh, you're gonna get blood," and the way if you're not familiar with like a flight helicopter setup for the most part, at least the aircraft we fly, the flight medic sits right at the head of the patient in the aircraft, and we have we'll call it like a pan. It's like this big plastic liner. Think of it as like a big floor mat liner for your car that's in the helicopter. So just all of whatever fluids don't run everywhere in the aircraft. You don't want blood and stuff run down the crevices of the aircraft. And so he shows me this picture of that he took after a call of all this blood in the pan of this helicopter. And he's like, "Yeah, there's so much blood all over my boots, I had to throw them away, so I don't know why you're doing that." And I remember looking at him, and I remember thinking, like, "Man, you've been off the truck too long." And he was talking like, he was, Mr. Hero or whatever, and this was terrible. And I said, "Man," I said, "do you not think anybody on the truck doesn't have that same situation?" And I remember asking him, I was like, "Where'd you get that patient from?" He said, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, did you go get that person out of the car or whatever?" "Huh?" I was like, "Obviously, you got that patient from somebody who'd already packaged them for you." Mm-hmm. Like, you don't think fire department, EMS, whoever got them for you out of wherever situation isn't covered with crap also? And like, I kind of feel like some people that have been in the game that I'm doing for a long time forget that. And I've never forgot that, which, I wasn't, I'd been working EMS a while in the truck before I went to flight, which I'm thankful for. And I always remember that always struck me. I was like, "Bro, I think you've had a disconnect with reality." Like what we do, yeah, it's cool. We get flying around a helicopter. We got some advanced protocols. We can do stuff that the truck can't. But at the end of the day, you're operating to the limit of your protocol signed off by your medical director. And I remember, and I've just always thought that just because we do more critical stuff and, we can do more interventions doesn't make us any better than the volunteer firefighter pulling somebody out of a car before anybody else gets there. And I truly believe that. And people talk about, "Oh man, you y'all got more risk of PTSD and stuff. No, look, if you're operating at the limit of what you know how to do and your capabilities, you're doing the best you can. And I think too, like especially volunteer firefighters, the first people on scene, you know, whether it be police, fire, you know, whatever, and they're doing the best they can, and they are a higher risk of that than us to a degree, because you're having to deal with all the whole chaos of a scene before we even get there. And I think that gets lost. And it just always struck me that, like, and it wasn't said, you know, that person, they're a great flight medic, very knowledgeable. I'm not going to say any names, but and I know he would treat a patient right, but it was just that attitude. I can't stand that wiener measuring contest stuff, which I was older than them, and maybe it's an attitude I've got as I'm older, but it's just I hate that attitude. You know, it always bugged me. It's like, man, like, you're not impressing anybody. You're making yourself look bad. Everybody's had terrible calls, and just because you got to do more cool interventions for them than whoever you got them from doesn't make you better than them or to make you cooler. But anyways, that was my tangent, kind of little soapbox rant. I just it bugs me.
One thing,
and I know you've probably seen them people on the truck, especially like, and you see it a lot with like new medics. And I've seen this a lot when I was there. New medics that get a medic, and then they're with like an EMT and think the EMT doesn't know anything.
They'll have the paragod syndrome.
Yeah, the
I hate
paragod
to say
syndrome.
it like that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I've seen people do that, and I'm like, especially older EMTs that I've worked with that have saved my butt, and I've been like, bro, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Just because you think you got this advanced cert, that person you're with is going to save your ass. And just because they don't have a certification or a state license to go with it, they know more than you. I guarantee you.
Yeah, it's like an old saying that Herb Denton, he's a paramedic up in North Georgia now. He used to be down here in Colquitt County. But one thing he taught me back when I was just a first responder, he was like, dude, paramedics save lives. But Ian, here you go, breaking the stuff.
Yeah. Trying to adjust my mic and tear stuff up.
Herb, he told me, he was like, paramedics may save lives, but EMTs save medics.
Yeah, and it is accurate. I mean, it's kind of an overused thing to a degree, but I mean, it's true. I mean, and that's like, you know,
sometimes paramedics and EMTs can get tunnel vision,
Yeah.
and you may overlook something that is very simple and basic, and it happens to everybody.
Which now I found it an odd situation too. Flight nurses have told me, like, man, it's good having a good medic. I will, they'll be thinking about whatever, and y'all medics are like, man, you just need to work on the basics. Treat your patient, not that monitor labs.
Yeah,
And
keep it basic, simple.
Yeah, which on the helicopter we both pretty much have the same, capabilities and job. It's just come from two different realms, which is why they set up the helicopters here in Georgia the way they do. Which most of the country, I'm sure, are medic. Nurse, unless you get like hospital-based systems and stuff. But
one person I did, or one group of folks I did want to, say also about that carries a whole bunch with them. Dispatchers.
Yeah,
they take that initial call. They hear all the commotion in the background and everything else, and not only do they deal with the person's emergency over the phone, then they get to deal with us, be our lifeline.
Yeah,
Because God forbid, like that situation where we went for one minute call and then it turned into something else. I can't even imagine what the dispatchers were thinking. All of a sudden, us coming over the radio, hey, we need law enforcement out here. Them not knowing what all was going on, and then
Yeah. Well, I dispatched for a while. Well, I don't know if I ever told you, but anyways, when I had my cancer stuff, I had cancer when I was 32. I had an anaplastic large cell lymphoma, and I had to go through chemo and a stem cell transplant. But after I came back from a stem cell transplant, doctor wouldn't let me back in the truck because I had 0 vaccinations or anything. I hadn't got it back, and so I couldn't go back on a truck. And luckily, Terrell County, where I was working, they dispatched in house. And Bo, shout out to Bo Hamby, medical director, which he's retired now, but he said I could come back and work dispatch and to get some hours there. And so I came into dispatch, having worked as firefighter, paramedic. And I was like, I'm coming dispatch. Okay, this be fun. Whatever, dispatching. Man, it is
that
chaos.
is a whole new...
Yeah, if you ain't never been on that end as a EMS person,
working that console.
You should get you a little stint of working the console and multiple people calling about something, and you're trying to get the information you need to get. Okay, where you at? What's your name? What's the callback number? What's going on? I don't need to hear. Just get the cops here. And people getting mad. I just need an amber lamp. No. What's going on?
We need to know what we sending these folks.
I can't dispatch just because you need an ambulance. Like, is it a shooting or did somebody get bit by a mosquito? I need to know. And it is chaos. You have to do a lot of
there's
of
a whole
management and
bunch that
corralling.
these dispatchers have to do. When I was over in Clinch County, when I was working over there with SO, I worked behind the console, if I wasn't jailing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that dispatchers had to deal with, and they're like, oh, well, they just answer the phones and, run tags. No, they got NCIC, GCIC training. They even suffer PTSD from the stuff that they hear, and they hear it, but they're picturing it in their heads.
Yeah.
So, dispatchers, they are really oversalt sometimes.
Yeah, and we have our own dispatchers for, air medical, and sometimes I'll hear crews or pilots get irritated with, not necessarily say to them, but just get irritated at whatever circumstance. And I always remember that. I'm like, hey man, look, I don't know what they got going on. Like they just may be a terrible person or having a bad day, but hey man, they might have a lot going on, especially when we get busy. Like, why are they calling me? I'm like, look, they're just trying to find somebody to go. They need somebody's calling, and I know we're busy. Don't get mad at them. Like
they're just doing their job.
It ain't nothing personal. I can promise you. Like they're not saying, "Hey, I'm about to call this helicopter and make them real mad." Which, I mean, maybe that I don't know for sure. Maybe somebody is like that.
Oh yeah.
But I said I can guarantee you they're probably like, man, I don't want to call them because they're gonna be irritated. I'm calling them right now. Whatever. So I don't know. I try to remember that. Tell them politely. Which sometimes I ain't gonna say the same thing, or I'm not holier than thou. Sometimes like, oh, why are they calling us again?
Yeah, I just not too long that we were dispatched out on a call, and it was one of the new dispatchers, and she was talking so fast, and you could hear the hype in her voice.
Yeah.
I couldn't make out what she was saying, and I was like, dispatch, if you don't mind, please slow down your speaking.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath and repeat the information.
Mm-hmm.
And she come back across, and I guess I kind of called her out a little bit, but I was trying to be a little can't say discreet because I'm saying it and all the other crews are hearing it.
Yeah.
But, ever since then, though, I've noticed she ain't been so hyper and stuff like that, because normally you could... If they sound hyped up, sometimes it could be something legit wrong.
Yeah.
Or sometimes their adrenaline's just jacked up,
Especially and I come to know this from dispatch, and you probably know too from working dispatch, especially if there's like a large incident, like a bad wreck or something, they about to get a dozen calls at one time, and they got to answer all of them. And it's going to get that they're overstressed. They are overtaxed. Okay, we know about the wreck. I'm sorry, not trying to be rude. What's your name, number? Okay, we're trying to get people dispatched. And they're trying to, especially if you're like the only dispatcher working that console or something, because how many times you call dispatch is dispatching you, and you hear phone ringing in the background.
Yeah.
Brrring, brrring.
And when I worked over in Clinch County, the dispatch center before they got the Tri-County 911.
Yeah.
You only had it was just you and whoever was working in the jail jailing.
Uh-huh.
And say like if a major power outage went off because Slash Pine, their EMC, the dispatcher at the sheriff's office had to answer EMC's calls.
Yeah.
And so like if we had bad weather coming in, of course I didn't want to be at work. I wanted to be out there chasing.
Yeah.
But on some of those shifts, I had to be there at work, and I dreaded it because I knew the phone calls for law enforcement would come in, our fire department, and then EMC's phones would be going off, people reporting an outage. And I wonder how they have it set up now because they got the Tri-County 911 over there. But I know they got like 3 or 4 dispatchers working over there now. And one of the dispatchers, Talina Mills, I always call her T. She's still over there, and I watched her start as a brand new green dispatcher. She is like one of the most seasoned dispatchers I've seen, and she's got well over 20 years experience.
Yeah.
And I called, it was a matter of fact the day when my dad got life-flighted, and I was calling her to find out where life flight was taking them to. And she recognized my voice. She hadn't heard my voice ever since I last worked over there.
Yeah.
She was working in console. Is
Pull,
this Larry?
pull your mic a little closer.
What about now?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, you get a little far away from it. It gets too echoey, or it's hard to hear.
Yeah. But she was like, "Is this Larry?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Hey, Larry, it's you." I was like, "I knew I recognized that voice."
Yeah.
But she had told me, and she was like, "Was that your dad that they picked up?" I was like, "Yeah, it was. I'm calling to find out where they're taking them to." Because I was leaving from Moultrie, heading over to Homerville, and then I found out I was having to go to Jacksonville. And that was right about the same time me and you was texting. I was telling you what was going on. And just for her to, because I remember how she used to be, and then I heard her all these years later. I'm like, holy crap, she's very well seasoned.
Yeah,
you know, went from being, kind of scattered around, scurrying to it's just another call in a sense because she's got all that experience. So.
Yeah, I'll hear. I can tell too. Which we get kind of the same dispatchers a lot. And you can tell when it's somebody that's been there a while, or if you had a new person that they're kind of shadowing or something. They're talking like, I don't know, like they don't say they don't say I don't know, but you can tell they're having to think or ask somebody, what are they asking? Because a lot of times we'll have to get a phone patch or something, and they're trying to figure it out, or like or if we're trying to go in for a scene and we can't get them on whatever frequency, hey, can you get a phone patch, or can you make contact with them, see what this thing in there? You can just tell he's more experienced in that realm, but most of them are all good.
And we say some of the older, and you can tell if somebody's got radio communications experience and all that. One of our dispatchers in Mitchell, he's a very devout ham radio operator.
Yeah.
And there's times I've talked to him about my radios I got in my truck, and he was like, well, dude, you should try this, try that. And then whenever he's dispatching, like if we call for a bird, I don't even have to request for them to, because we got the digital system over there, along with the analog. Before I even asked, they already patched both of the systems together so we could talk to the bird while it's still, 30 minutes. Well, I ain't going to say 30 minutes, but at least about 20 miles out, we're already giving updates and be able to talk to them. But some of the younger ones and ones that are not so tech savvy, it's like, hey, can y'all patch us through so we can, talk to them? So, which has been a minute since we've had a call for y'all over in Mitchell. But, we've had our times where we've had to call y'all and the other company that services the area. So,
yeah, and I don't really, especially like scenes and stuff when it's critical. I don't care who you call, whoever's closer. I was that way on the ground.
It's whatever's best for the patient. Matter of fact, like the last call I worked on scene with you, we had that accident over in Colquitt County, and I was there as a volunteer, and you was on the bird that night, and I didn't even know you was on the bird until y'all landed and you walked up to me. And EMS already had patient care, and I was in charge of the LZ that night, and that's first and only time I've actually had to, do the scene parameter to make sure nobody got close to the tail rotor. And that right there was, pretty cool all on its own. Because setting up an LZ is one thing, but, having to oversee it, make sure nobody gets too close to the bird and all that stuff, along with the darkness of night, that was something all in its own.
Yeah, we've had some, every now and then we'll have scenes where, like, there's just a lot of people there, which we can always, pick a different scene, but sometimes it's just not a good, we try to make it, and you'll notice too, like pilots will land, for anybody else that's not familiar with it, pilots, so they land on the scene, they don't want to put the tail in a direction where they can't see people coming up to it, preferably, if at all possible. So most times, see like a helicopter land on a road or highway, they're going to put that tail in the direction where there's least amount of people. And a lot of times they'll land perpendicular on a highway, so they put the tail off the road, so it's not in danger of anybody walking into it.
In case somebody comes walking.
Nobody walks towards the tail of a helicopter, even like when it's off now. We don't. It's just a habit. You don't walk under the tail. You don't walk around the tail. We do like little show and tells or PRs with it. Nah, don't go that way. Don't touch it. Don't mess with it.
Yep. Stay away from that area. That whole end is dangerous.
But yeah, we'll put lot of those will come in. You know, I asked the pilot, it's like, hey, do you want me to get you a rotor guard? Somebody to keep eye on, like, because a rotor guard is basically somebody going to stand up front of a helicopter and they're going to keep eye contact with the pilot and they're going to make sure nobody walks up back from it. Because helicopters don't have a rear view mirror. He can't tell what's going on with the tail rotor. For the most part, there's a huge blind spot on the backside there. And so I've gone that many times, law enforcement, find somebody that's just kind of standing around. Hey, see the pilot standing right in front of it? Make eye contact with him. If anybody comes up, tell him no. You know, don't let anybody come near that helicopter, especially near the tail, just as an added security. Because, I mean, there's been some stuff. Because people, they see a helicopter, and especially, and it's nothing against them, because I understand if your loved one's injured, but they'll come driving right up to it. And sometimes law enforcement on highways are the worst of, like, they're trying to get up to the accident scene, and if we're parked like parallel right in the road, they'll go drive right beside it, like up. And I've seen them drive under rotor blades, and I'm like, "What are y'all doing?" Like, and pilot to get back, like, what? I get back to the helicopter. Pilot's like, "Man, where'd he come from?" I was like, "I don't know, man. He came from back there. I don't know what he's doing and why he did that, but he could have waited. Like, I don't know. I don't understand it sometimes. I guess they're just not brief, but I've seen them drive right beside a helicopter on the grass, you know, to get to where the accident scene was.
That tunnel vision setting in.
Yeah, and it scared me. Like, and the pilot's like, "Yeah, all of a sudden this cop car just came right beside me." And he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "I'm trying to look behind," but that's, you know, importance of having a rotor guard. So like, nobody's going to come from back there behind where the fire trucks got all the lanes blocked. But, you know, I guess they can't necessarily stop law enforcement, but.
Well, could always hang a donut on the side away from the helicopter.
Yeah.
You know, the cops would be more liable to go toward the donut.
That's been few and far between, but I've seen it a couple times. Law enforcement knows, but I don't really know what's going through their mind. I guess tunnel vision, they're trying to get up there and they don't really see the danger in it because, they're not doing anything.
And for our law enforcement officers listening, you got to, as part of it, we got to throw in that donut joke. Sponsored in part by Dunkin' Donuts.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess overall, I worry about EMS and I worry about, like I said, I think a lot of too, like if I need to get out of it or not. But I do like what I do. It's just something, you've been in it 20 years, you're like, man.
Well, I had that little 9-month stint where I went to work, you know, out of EMS.
Yeah.
When I was working over at the Marine base, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed being home every night, off on federal holidays, off on the weekends. I enjoyed it. It was more family time.
Yeah.
That was time I don't get back with my kids, back when I was married at that time. But whenever that contract didn't get renewed, you know, I knew I had to go to something to still make ends meet.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, whenever I knew I was going back on the truck, I submitted my application. Not even 24 hours later, Johnny Russ was on the phone with me. "Hey, man, I got an opening in Baker County and Mitchell County. Where do you want to work?" Yeah. I was like, "Put me back home in Mitchell County where I know." And we said, Mitchell County, you know, my whole EMS career has been there in that county. So I know pretty well most of the in and outs. There's still a few roads I haven't been down, thank God. But, you know, that's what I've known to be home, you know. And it's like I've had chances to go work with other EMS agencies. And I'm not discrediting any of them. Just, you know, Mitchell County is what I know.
No.
You know. And, of course, I know our dispatchers, our fire. You know, I know that county like the back of my hand, you know. And normally that's when I'd say, "Oh, what's that?" You know, you're talking about like a mark on the hand. But, you know, sometimes some places just grow with you, you know, and grow on you.
Which, you know, EMS, I guess all public safety, but I can speak from fire and EMS that work 24-hour shifts. It's tough on family life.
Yes.
Which I say it's tough, but I'm very thankful for my whole days off. You know, when I get to pick up my kids from school, take them to school, you know, and I do enjoy like those whole days off. I don't know if I could. I mean, I know I could work a 9 to 5, you know, for whatever, but I like those whole days off when I can get some stuff done and I can spend time with the kids, and like especially if they're out of school, I get to do a whole day of stuff with them.
Summertime, you can be gone sun up to sundown.
Yeah, water parks and stuff, like, you know, water adventure stuff. I like that. But I'm blessed that I got Ashley, and I met Ashley because she knows EMS. She worked EMS for 6 months before started doing what she's doing. So I'm very blessed to have her. So she understands, and I've done it ever since we met her. I've been working 24-hour shifts. But I think it's something too. Like when you have kids in EMS, I think if they grow up in it, and you don't make it like a big deal that you're gone, that you're worried about it. I don't think it's that big of a thing. I think it's more so kids feed off of like you. So like if you make it like a thing, like you're really upset that you're not there. Not to say you're upset if you're missing something like special that could go on. Like I got some big ball game or something, like, you hate you're not there. But I think if they see that you're not liking being gone all the time, it's going to accentuate their feelings about it, which every time I leave, I tell my kids I love them and I talk to them, wife picks them up. But it's just, I don't know. I'm sure they would probably like me home more, but I think, I hate to say that. I am home a good bit. It's just different, especially if you're starting it and like your spouse or something's not used to it, it's different. Ashley used to joke that she was, a part-time single mom, which would really piss me off.
But she was being sarcastic.
Yeah,
yeah. So.
But it was kind of like the general thing of like, no, you're not a single mom. I get what she's saying. It was just, more or less the manner which she said it, and like, I guess the other implications of that. I was like, man, it kind of pissed me off because it's like, look, I'm not wanting to make you a part-time single mom. It's just the job. I get it. If you're a spouse of somebody, you are kind of a part-time parent.
Being in a relationship with somebody in the emergency services, no matter if it's fire, law, any of it, there's a lot of pros and cons and a lot of give and takes, and it takes somebody special to do the job. But at the same time, though, it takes somebody special to love the person that's doing it, because there's going to be arguments, miscommunications, and stuff like that. But show me somebody that, where it don't happen, but just in emergency services, we do have higher divorce rates in the professions and all that. And, there's a whole lot to it that the folks really don't see, you know, so.
Which, we always talk about some of the funnier stuff, whatnot. But I've always, especially since now doing flight where you got more critical stuff, or like worse patients, I guess, to agree. It's kind of less, I don't want to say funny stuff. I'm going to say funny stuff, but it's not, I'm not trying to make light of anybody's situation anybody would pick up. I hope EMS has a very lot of dark humor to deal with it. So don't take anything like we say or taking light of stuff as looking down on a patient. It's just kind of the way to deal with it and to process it to a degree. But I struggle with now, and I never thought about this till probably recent years of like, and I know you're going to know what I'm talking about. Anybody who works EMS, public safety, like, okay, most people have a job. Say, you're, I don't know, working construction or something, or just name a job, like a normal 9-to-5-ish job.
Administrative assistant.
Administrative assistant. You're working in HR or something, whatever. Like, you can kind of come home and talk about, man, I had to deal with Bob at work, and Bob was doing this, whatever. Like, and I think now, too, is like, I don't really want to come home and burden anybody with this terrible situation that was and luckily, Ashley's in the medical field, and she's worked it. And so some of the stuff I'll tell her, but there's a lot of it is like, I don't want to burden anybody with this. And who's, I don't want to say like a normie per se, but anybody who has no idea of EMS, like, okay, we're sitting around a campfire. You may tell you about this terrible situation, and you're going to think, man, it's kind of not cool. I mean, they'll understand. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what else you got to talk about?
It's kind of like that scene in K3. They're sitting there trying to eat.
Oh, yeah.
And the girl asks, what's the worst call? That is the worst thing you want to ask any emergency responder or anybody in it. That's something we don't want to relive, and we actually get asked that a bunch. But sometimes we have to make humor of it to where we, it don't affect us that much. And, just even dad jokes help with her profession, and there's been like times we get called out for toe pain, You know, there's been times I've come across and I've done it. You know, so and so dispatch, tow truck's on the way. You know, but that's just the humor, trying to make the humor of it, because some of the stuff we see is the worst stuff you can ever imagine or come up with.
Yeah, there's a lot of stupid stuff, but peppered in all of that is some terrible situations.
And some of this stuff though, you can't make up.
Yeah.
By any means.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's a rewarding job all in its own. You can't do it for the money by no means.
Mm-mm.
But, you don't get thanked. I don't do it get thanked. I do it because it's helping somebody. It's making a difference.
Yeah.
And even, it's like what I've said before, that we've gotten somebody back after a cardiac arrest and they passed a few days later in the hospital. It's tragic. But at the same time, though, I feel a little bit, not boast in my chest, but I feel good about it knowing that family had a chance to say goodbye.
Well, there's so many times, like, we take people to the hospital and drop them off. It's like, all right, got another call. And, like, you never know what actually happened or the end result of it. Very seldom do you hear, like, the end result of anybody drop off. Unless you pick them up again or see them out in town or something. Or you have no family or something.
Or, unfortunately, you read their obituary in the paper.
Yeah, or you come in the hospital later and they're like, yeah, they didn't make it. Or sometimes, you can go back and they're like, hey, man, they're doing good or whatever. But a lot of them, I would say, 98% of the time, you have no idea
we have no idea unless we go back to them or we see a family member and they recognize us.
Yeah.
And, I know there's been times you've been uptown and be like walking through Walmart and somebody come up, hey, I just want to thank you. And you're like, who are you?
Yeah.
We see so many people day in and day out. We can't keep up with them. And certain calls may stick with us or stand out to us, but, and it's not that we don't have a, personal care about people. We just see so many.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with.
Well, I actually pointed out people that I've cared for before on, like ambulance or flight, especially like, really bad situations or calls or whatever. Because a lot of times the heat of the moment, and you're not seeing this person in their normal atmosphere to like recognize a face, or they've got trauma going on, and you're not necessarily staring at somebody's face. They got some other issue going on, and a lot of times you don't remember names, but like people have told me, and Ashley's told me a couple people like, hey, that person over there, that's that person from a while back that whatever happened to him. And I'm like, man, they're actually walking around now. Like, that's good. It's good to see them. And I know they have no idea that it was me involved or whoever. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they do. But Ashley's pointed out a couple times, especially with social media.
Sometimes the family members will remember you.
Yeah. But social media has been, I guess, good for that in some aspects of seeing outcomes. Sometimes you figure out somebody or somebody will share something of a bad situation, like you'll see the good outcome, and you do get followed, like because they want to know like how this person ended up, which is good. I think emotionally, mentally, you're like to see this person that's like families posted like, hey, Jim Bob's doing better now. He's
looking at getting released from the hospital or so and so.
So I guess that's one of the few pluses.
It's like that code we had a few weeks back. I wouldn't have known that the woman had made it out until my boss had told me. He was like, y'all, she's been released, a couple of stints, and she's got a new, persona on life. She's back living regular life. And last we knew, she was going in the cath lab. That's the last we knew. Until afterwards, we're told, she was released, blah blah. So,
which I'll tell you, one of the things I really liked about Code 3, which I think probably people don't really realize, is like, say you have this terrible cardiac arrest or whatever, you get done with that, and like, like who is it? The intern said, "All right, go take y'all guys for beers." No, there's more calls to run.
Exactly.
There's more calls to run. Like, I remember when I was on the ground before I got into flight, there was a terrible wreck, and there was an ejection. They called. Well, I ended up calling 2 helicopters. I was second ambulance on scene. I hopped in an ambulance, which is another person that want to get on this podcast. I hopped in an ambulance, and he was overwhelmed. This person had a bad TBI, traumatic brain injury. They were combative. and he's trying to hold them down to keep from hurting themselves. And we got a line, gave him some Versed, kind of knocked him down. Flight took him off. Their truck was an absolute disaster. Ours was a minor disaster. And so we went back in service. I went straight from there to, I think it was like a low blood sugar or something. Get there, and the guy coded. So I went straight from terrible wreck to the code. And now our truck is a complete basket case. We had to get back in service, or we had to get back to the station, restock it, clean all the stuff, and then we had some more calls after that. But I think people don't realize that you had the terrible call, but you know what? Somebody else's emergency's coming, and that was from one bad call to another call. But you might go from, a bad pediatric incident, and then the next person calls you with, man, I've had gas for 5 days.
Yeah,
and you're sitting there trying to be a nice person at 3 a.m. And you're still thinking about the kid, and then this person's, been farting for 5 days, and then once you take them to the hospital because they're very gassy or something, you're like,
exactly.
And you're trying to take their condition seriously. We're like, look, man,
take some Beano.
I'm, I definitely take you to the hospital, take care of your medical needs, but you're sitting there looking at them like, oh, man. Which
you really called 911 for this.
Yeah. And bless their heart, they have no idea of that circumstance,
Yeah, they don't know what we just left from or, stuff like that. And there's times we're on a call and we got calls holding.
Look, and I think about that with like cops too. Like if I ever get pulled over and the cop's got an attitude, I'm like, all right, I don't know what this guy just did, or if he's fighting with his wife, or if, he just found out like his dad's got terminal cancer. I try to, you never know the other person's situation, but I try to tell myself that instead of getting ticked off, because I've been in the same situation.
Everybody's facing battles that nobody knows about.
Maybe this guy's really depressed right now, whatever situation he's got going on, and he's just having a bad effing day. He's not in the mood, and they said you got to go work traffic or something or whatever. I don't know. I don't know cop stuff. Sorry if I'm butchering that. Any police officers, but. I always try to remember that.
Well, you'll find out if you get pulled over anytime soon.
Yeah, I definitely. Because look, in the grand scheme of things with police, what is it going to be? What is it going to benefit you from being an a-hole to a law enforcement officer?
None.
Zero.
All right, sir, press hard. You're signing more than one copy.
You want more violations? Oh, okay. It's going to benefit you zero being an a-hole to a police
throw
officer.
the book at you and let the judge sort it out.
Yeah. And not saying like any EMS person would treat you worse, but it benefits you none to be an a-hole to an EMS person. And if that person's, being a jackwagon to you, you can kindly say like, hey man, look, are you all right? Yeah. Like not being like facetious or being a smart ass. Like, look, man, I don't know what you got going on, but you all right? Like, I don't know. There's a nice way to say everything, but you've always got those people too you pick up that just got a bad attitude. Like they didn't want to see you, but like, man, you called me here. You called me.
Yeah, it ain't like I just picked your house out of random.
I didn't wake you up out of bed to take you to the hospital. So, I don't know why you're so grumpy. But
exactly. I've had people, even me as an advanced EMT, I truly cannot give narcotic pain medications. I can give you acetaminophen with no problems. But that doesn't mean cuss me out because you want pain meds and you can't get it because certain areas where you're having pain, we truly cannot even give you pain medication because the doctor needs to be able to assess you properly at the hospital. If you're having abdominal pain and we give you fentanyl or, whatever else, and it messes that pain, how's that doctor going to be properly able to assess you if he palpates it and it's not reproducing the pain? So just don't hate us because we're limited on what we can do because we got standard protocols, for stuff and which that some people understand it, some people don't. They're thinking, well, I call the ambulance, so that means I get to go straight into the back of the ER. That's not always the case with the ERs being so overcrowded. If you're not having a life-threatening emergency, guess what? Chances are you going out into the lobby and you'll be triaged in. If you were going, if it's a true life and death emergency, you're going to a room. But, just because you say you're having a chest pain, but you have another cause, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go straight into a room because of that. The public has its misconceptions about EMS, And just because you don't go in by ambulance, just because you go in by ambulance, it doesn't mean necessarily you're going straight into the back. The only difference, between some of it, you've already had 12 lead done, you got an IB established, versus somebody who drove in by vehicle.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at my cameras. I noticed one was on a different timer. I hope they're still recording. No, I think yeah, they're still synced up.
Yeah,
I didn't know if me hitting any of my other remotes turned one of them off. So I was hoping they were still going. But yeah, they're still the same time. I looked up a second ago. I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, I'm looking at the one across.
Yeah, I was like, did one of the buttons I flip turn that thing off? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where, I do wish, I know y'all probably have the same conversation on the ambulance of like the direction EMS is heading. I mean, I'm sure it's getting better. I know Georgia or I hope it's getting better. I know people are working on it, but I know Georgia just did the critical care paramedic. They just got that.
I've heard mixed reviews about people's opinions about it.
At least it's a step, If nothing else, that shows they're working on trying to make the stuff better. But they got to work on staffing. And I think this is my general. And I've talked with a lot of. Well, I say a lot. I've talked with many people that have been a long time of like why you got into EMS, which, the reason I got into it, I work 10 days a month. But what I come to learn was I did like providing service to people that needed it. Especially when it was a county service, you weren't doing it. Well, you damn sure weren't doing it for the money at a county service, which now counties pay pretty good. But in the beginning, you paid nothing. But everybody was there because they liked helping people out. You might like schedule, but I mean, it wasn't about that. It's about serving the people. And then it became, I work for a private service, so I'm not trying to. I work for a private service of the air that does great stuff. But at the end of the day, too, you're like, well, this isn't necessarily just for the people. It's got to make a profit, And that's not hating on my air service, any private service. A lot of them are great with great protocols, but it's kind of like the foundation of it. Like me coming from fire department, you dang sure didn't work. When I started working in fire department, I think my base pay salary was like $18,000 a year in 2005. It was nothing, now, which, my pay's come up dramatically. I'm sure fire department has a good bit, but so is the price of everything else. But you kind of get back to like, well, why are you doing this? And it's kind of just the system you exist in, from hospital systems, they all have to make a profit to exist.
Yeah, so because we don't do it for the money by any means, but we still need to get paid. They need to get reimbursed for whatever equipment's used and the services itself. And I get what you're saying. There's sometimes I've sat there and I question, do I want to still keep on doing this?
Yeah.
Because is the grass greener on the other side doing this?
Because then I found you get, everybody in organizations got different jobs. So you got money people, accounting people, you got like education people, you got staffing, managers, whatever. And especially managers, they have multiple roles. So they're they got to make sure money's being made, and but they also have to make sure the right thing's being done. And I understand that. I supervised for a while in ground service, and I get it. But it's sometimes you're like, man, are you worried about me, or are you worried about making a buck? Like it. And I hate to put it that way, but maybe they're not trying to come off that way, because I know they're getting pressure from us below, they're getting pressure from above, and it's just a weird situation I never thought I'd be in when I started EMS. I still remember being on the truck, first wreck I went to, and I had to get somebody's insurance, because used to we go to wrecks, we're just worried solely about them. They're like, well, okay, we got to get their car insurance. I'm like, so this person I just pulled out of the car, I got to ask them where their car insurance is. And I remember thought, I was like, that's a change in the tide. Yeah. And I get it. They got to have a reimbursement, but it felt so icky. Yeah. I wasn't told this in paramedic school that I got to worry about billing. Yeah. I wasn't told I got to get your group number and your policy ID.
Because the main thing I'm concerned about whenever I show up on scene is, let me get this person, where do we need to get them to? Yeah. Is it emergent? My job is not the billing department. My job is to take care of.
And look, I ain't trying to paint them out as villains, because they'll say at the end of the day, treat your patient, but it's just that you have to do that. It's a necessity. Yes, it's just kind of like
they got to make money, and they got to have money to pay us.
Look, and maybe just I'm a old timer, remembering those days, and I still hang on to that. Maybe now it's not an issue to people; it's just part of the business, but. that always stuck in my mind. I was like, wait, so this person that I just got out of the car, and I got a long spine board. Hey, do you know where your wallet and insurance card is? And it's just, and I'm painting it in a bad light of like, that's the situation where you got to do it. But that's kind of the reality, And most people don't really have a problem with it. They understand they got to give their insurance card for, anything they get done, hospital,
It's
whatever.
like I watched a couple of movies before. I think it was the one with Bill Cosby, Mothers, Jugs, Speed, something.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. But a little clip in the movie I seen where they loaded a woman up on a stretcher and they stopped before they even started moving with her. They're like, "Oh, we need payment,"
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, thank God we don't do that nowadays, because I would feel very awkward doing that. Trying to get somebody and get them to the ambulance, but hold up, before I do anything, let me get paid.
Yeah. Which it was, I used to hear them that there were services that like had to get your credit card information or whatever your billing information before they transport you. And I always thought, like, oh man, that's even worse. I'm glad we're not in that situation. Which I don't know how true that was. Stuff heard through the grapevine. Who knows if it's actually true? I never cared enough to research that in depth. But just hearing that, you're like, ugh, that sounds gross. But
I paid. My phone just went off for a structure fire in Quaquet County right now. I'm way out of area. And what's that? Quaquet County, we've been running wide open lately, so.
Yeah. Well, shoot, I think everybody is. I know everybody's been flying a ton here lately too. On my end, everybody's.
But of course, the weather's been perfect for it.
Yeah, so. It's been crystal clear, so everybody's been needing to go far away, which is like. People don't understand. Well, people do understand, but there's some people like hospital systems and scenes too don't understand. We have such a long way to go. If you got to go 150 miles one way, especially in the summer with the thunderstorms around here, it's like, okay, it's crystal clear here, but it's halfway between here and Atlanta. A ton of thunderstorms coming across, and we're not going to make it, so it'd be pointless for us to come pick them up.
It's like later this week we're looking at a chance for patchy fog in the mornings, and it's like the other day when we had that stroke call, right when I made the request for the bird, I was told over the radio, hey, they're probably not going to fly due to the overcast. I was like, hey, worst they can do is say no.
Yeah. You can always request, and you always say no.
They come back over the radio and said ETA 12 minutes. And I'm like, hold up, we're still like 15 minutes out, And they was surprised, the others were surprised that they still flew. And I'm like, hold up. They know where they're going to. The weather is overcast, but the ceiling's high enough where they can fly.
But it might be kind of, just above minimums there, but they know, like, it's about to clear or where they're going to have to go to, it's clear. So there's been many times we've lifted or we've gone, I don't say many. There's been times I've gone to scenes or wherever, like, man, we didn't think y'all fly. I was like, well, it's just, it's clearing up over here. I was like, 30 minutes ago, it was below minimums, but now, it's 1,000 foot higher. And we're good to go. And I said, where we're going, like, it's clear. It's like, it just, I guess in the opposite of what I said earlier, it's just kind of cruddy looking here, but it's about to clear up and where we're going.
Exactly. Clear. And like what you were saying about like destination, like with rural South Georgia, sometimes you're going to Jacksonville, Shannon, Gainesville, Tallahassee. Sea breezes. Summertime, sea breeze thunderstorms are a really big thing in Florida. And it could be so crystal clear down here, and you see one little anvil off about 100 miles on the horizon.
Yeah.
That right there is enough to halt any aircraft from going there, because the outflow boundary, this goes back to the whole weather knowledge, the outflow boundary can start up a cluster of storms going all in line. Y'all cannot fly through that, and why even attempt to try to load somebody up on that, knowing that they're not going to be able to get to their destination appropriately and safely. So,
which, luckily too, where we're at, if we can go. Trauma centers. Let's just talk about them. Well, even comprehensive stroke centers too. Like, there's got some north, you got some east, you got some south, and you got some west. So if it's anything in this area, depending on what storms come from, like, it's like Conference Stroke Center. If we only go west, you go to Dothan. Go north, you go to Atlanta. If you want to go east, you can go to Savannah, or, even to Augusta. If you want to go south, east, Jacksonville. If you want to go south, Gainesville. So even depending on the direction, if we can't make it to the closest one, we go to the next closest. That's the direction where it's clear. So, which we have to calculate that all the time too. Which sometimes, we get scene requests and we'll ask, like, what's the nature of the call? Because if it's like a burn, we ain't gonna make it to any burn center. So if you're calling us for a burn, like we're just gonna tell you straight up, we're not gonna be able to get them there.
Yeah.
But if it's trauma, that's also got like a minor burn. Trauma. So there's just all kind of pre-planning. You know, God bless pilots and stuff. A good, they have to do all the planning and the weather forecast and stuff in South Georgia to figure out where we can or cannot make it in the time.
Because y'all got to keep up with what hospital they can go to, and the pilot's got to be able to tell you if you can make it to said hospital.
And most of the pilots have done it for a while. They know like what's trauma center and you know what their capabilities are. But looking emails pop up on my watch. You never stop getting the emails.
Nah, it's a reoccurring thing. That's the reason why there's a such thing as do not disturb mode.
Yeah, I should have put mine on that, but I was like, well, I'll keep on that just in case wife has to hit me up about some kind of emergency, which I guess do not disturb would still pop up. She kept calling me. But I hate just like completely turning off all my I mean, I'll silence it all, but I sometimes, except at night when, you know, my family's home, I'll put it on sleep so nothing bothers me. I'm not getting some email in the middle of the night.
That's the reason why mine's on vibrate. So, like with my son being at school, if school needs me, it'll get through. But, you know, if I'm right there and he's at home and all that, I'll put it on do not disturb if push comes shove. So.
Yeah. Well, anything we missed you want to talk about?
No, I think that's about got it.
Yeah.
My very first podcast ever. You know.
Well, hell, this is my first one too. So first of the series.
And you're the host.
Yeah, I know. Well, I take that back. This is my first video podcast because I've been doing the trivia stuff with my daughter. So, well, she's got a. If you don't know, and I haven't, I'll give a shout out to my daughter's trivia podcast. She does. It's just called the Kids Trivia Podcast, which there's no video. It's just audio. I ain't big on putting my kids' pictures and videos.
And I'll blame you with this day and time.
But you'll hear her voice. She does a fun little kids thing. I do it with her. So we basically do like she'll look up 10 questions on a subject. She want to do trivia, and then I'll do 10. We have to answer each other's questions, and you know sometimes I get a little insight on different stuff. You should listen to animals ones. I think I had a couple snake ones in there. You can probably correct me if I'm wrong because I was talking about elapids and Georgia's only. I can't remember how I phrased it. You know, trying to put it simple for kids, but that's Georgia's only like neurotoxic snake, whatever, lapid. But yeah, you know, Adeline loves all that stuff, and it's fun.
You're going to get a kick off of that group text message I'm about to show you in a minute.
Okay.
Work related, but you know, considering we have both worked for the same company.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
the never-ending thing of training.
Yeah, you got to do all your LMS. Look, we're the same way. If you don't have your LMS done, you get put off on certain stuff. You get put off flight status.
But of course, I make sure I try my best to stay on top of it and not procrastinate.
Yeah.
So, was that nobody's perfect? So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Well, thank you for coming to listen to the first podcast. It's probably something I try to do every couple weeks, maybe once a month. I don't really have a specific schedule. It's really just whenever I get some of the people I want to talk to come in. So that's basically it.
We'll do one on weather forecasting later on down the road, you know.
Yeah. But anyways, catch y'all next time. See you.
See ya.